Council regularly scheduled meeting, regularly scheduled 20 minutes late. I apologize. It is December 16th, 7:20 p.m., and we'd like to call the meeting to order. And Dan, could you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Liz, could we have a roll call, please?
Bryce?
Here?
Butsu?
Here.
Eschman?
Here.
George?
Here.
Hayden?
Here.
Robinson?
Here.
Skornica? Here.
Thank you. Entertain a motion for the approval of the current agenda.
Is there an additional item? in there?
There's, yes, there's at least one.
To approve the agenda as presented.
You need to add that item?
Yes, yep, that'll be at least one.
Support.
All right. Motion by Councilman Skornica, supported by Councilman Robinson. There is a request to add the BGYA Board of Directors, and so we do need to vote that in. That is requested to put on as new business A.
New
And-
business B?
New business A, and move everything down from there, as to simply throw that in there. And then the request was made at the last meeting, and that is my fault that is not where it should be, from the public to please move up the Ortonville Wild Park to A, and that was not done as requested of us, and so I apologize. That is my fault. I did not catch that as we discussed that at the last meeting. So that would be 12A would then become the park, and the numbers, or the letters would move on down from there.
Was it, Tanya, wasn't that to move up at the last meeting, not this meeting? Is that
No,
right?
they requested to move up, but we couldn't because we already had it, so we said we would move it and put it where, and change it, and we didn't. And that, like I said, that was my fault. As the email came out, I did not catch it in time. So do we entertain a motion for the agenda, amended agenda at all? I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Motion by President Bryce, supported by Councilman Eschman. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries 7-0. Item 5A will be the minutes of the regularly scheduled meeting from November 25th, 2019. Looking for a motion on that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from November 25th as presented. Support.
Motion by Councilman Eschman, supported by Councilman Butsu. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries 7-0. Next up will be our acceptance items, and this month we have the treasurer's report, the building department report, the ordinance violation report, and the board minutes from the Ortonville DDA will be forthcoming. The meeting was this morning, and the Brandon Township minutes are included. Planning Commission did not meet in December.
I gave you all the packets from the DDA meeting this morning. I didn't give you yours because you already had them.
They are included. Next up is our disbursements. And can I entertain a motion for those?
I'll make a motion to approve the disbursement report ending December 10th, 2019, and pay the village's bills in the amount of $14,343.66.
Support?
Motion by Councilman Butsu and supported by Councilman Hayden. Do we have any further questions, comments on that? Liz, can we please have a roll call vote?
Batsu,
Yes.
Eshman,
Yes.
George,
Yes.
Hayden,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes.
Skornica. Yes. Bryce.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries 7-0. Next up will be the public comment, and at this time, it is agenda items only, please. So if you see something on the agenda that you would like to share with us, please step forward and state your name and your address if you'd like.
So, before I get into it here, does anybody here live over by Baldwin, near Sashaba or near Seymour Lake Road?
We're on the village
I need a
council.
ride home. So, it's a long walk.
That would be on the village.
I'm sure we'll get you
We'll
home
get you a
safe
ride
tonight.
Yeah, tonight, you will be voting on a proposed ordinance for the 47 acres deeded to the village of Ortonville to be used for public park purposes. A paralysis has set in over the course of the 2+ years that this ordinance has been on the table. Park or preserve? This paralysis comes down to what seems to be two competing desires, generating a renewal of the question, what do you want for this property? A park or a preserve? The ordinance as it stands renders the property useless for either the protection of the wildlife there or for the use as a public park, which is, by the way, specifically mentioned in the deed, by all humans except hardy ones who have waders and machetes. A park is an area of land, usually in a largely natural state, for the enjoyment of the public, having facilities for rest and recreation, often owned, set apart, and managed by a city, state, or nation. A wildlife preserve requires knowledge of the wildlife and their habitats there, and careful planning for its protection. In other words, due diligence by a city, state, or nation. Our council this ordinance meets neither definition, by the way. Our council has precluded research, declined to initiate studies to guide the development of a scientifically based wildlife management plan. An earlier proposal for revision to allow paths and/or trails was also rejected, rendering the property inaccessible to most people. Both of these decisions have emerged from a philosophy that wildlife and human presence are mutually exclusive. I'm here tonight to challenge that philosophy. From the National Recreation and Park Association, I'd just like to read a little bit. Park and recreation professionals should become leaders in protecting open space for the common good and actively
Just to let you
lead.
know, you have about 10 seconds left.
10 seconds?
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
boy. All right. In conclusion. Okay. I urge you to reconsider this self-contradicting ordinance. Open it up for both scientifically based responsible wildlife management and compatible human activity. Thank you.
Thanks, Lois.
Thank you.
And you might want to take a look at page 2 of the handout. There are elements laid out for protection of wildlife.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lois.
My name is Ron Sutton, and I live at 57 Church Street. My remarks are in regard to the park. I'm not ready to call it Preservation Park, but we'll call it Park. But I want to revert back to meetings quite a long time ago when you first decided to have it staked or surveyed. And at the time, the talk was that where the stakes was put in, we'd have some permanent posts so they wouldn't get kicked out and not be able to find them. And that has not happened. Also, we were led to believe through conversation, not through a vote, that there would be some place that was labeled as an entrance with a sign where you could get into that and feel welcome. And that has not happened. I think that regardless of which way it goes, you need to get them posts in. You need to get an area off of village property at least opened up so people know they're welcome and a sign there. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Yep.
Wayne Wills, 4 North Church Street. My remarks are going to be brief. For almost 40 years, my family has owned, we have a partnership up north, south of Cadillac. We've owned 200 acres of property, privately owned. And we've had forestry management plans. Every 5 years, we update that plan. Now, what happens is that the DNR has told us that when property is properly maintained and trimmed and controlled, you have the property actually improve. The wildlife improves, the undergrowth improves, the forestry, everything about the property improves. If it's left pristine, what you're going to find is that two things. The Phragmites that we have growing right now at the end of Church Street are going to take over, and they're going to create an improved, well, not improved, but a reduced flow of water through the area. You're going to have increased flooding. We're dealing with other flooding in the village already. And Phragmites are prone to having fire. So if you have a prevailing westerly wind and a fire is started in a dry season, it can go all the way through that entire park and up the hill and take out some homes. Some homes are right in that property, Mr. Eschman. So we can be concerned that without a management plan, without proper maintenance and trimming of trees, what you're going to have is an issue that may be out of control and could cause some very serious damage to our park that you are entrusted to handle and maintain. So thank you.
Thanks, Wayne.
So I wish you would consider at least doing a study, because without a study, I think our community deserves better. Thank you.
Wayne, I have a quick question. How long have you had a forest management plan on that property? I'm just curious.
Probably 25 years.
Okay, thank you.
And it's updated about every 5 years.
Thanks, Mike.
Did you want to?
I mean, I don't want to, I guess, engage in this public comment to answer a question, but it's okay.
Well, you can if it helps with your thoughts. Anybody else?
Pam DeLancher, I live at 450 Linda K, which adjoins the park. I want to speak about the park too. And we have been fighting the plants also, the Phragmites, and we border it, and we've been fighting it hard. So it will enter there too, I presume. Yeah, without the study, Without research, I don't even believe that there's been more than the survey done in 2018 asking the community what they want done with that park. And to say that all these people speaking aren't a majority is not fair. You're not representing us. So we really need educated decisions. You shouldn't be voting on things that you don't know enough about yet. So more research, please, and education.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you. Anybody else? On agenda items?
Hello, hi, Deanna DeTore. Just wanted to comment a couple things. One, I think it's really important that any board members that border this community refrain from voting because it's a conflict of interest. And as we know, anyone that's trying to, my understanding is that Mr. Ishman has adjoining property, so I'd like to put it on the record that he should refrain from any voting because it is a conflict of interest, number one. Number two, in our legislature in Lansing, when they get a phone call of more than 7 people calling them at one time, it's considered a major issue. You have more than 7 people here, this is a major issue. In our state of Michigan, that's how they recognize an issue. So to say it's not a majority, some research on this part is well known. You should note that. Anyone showing up here to address a concern is an opinion, and it should be considered a majority. If our state recognizes that, we should be recognizing that. When I called this, and I was told this directly from the state of Michigan, when I called them on an issue, they told me if they get 7 people calling on one issue, it's considered major. It has to go out and be addressed. So those are the 2 things. Please refrain from any kind of voting, conflict of interest, and 2, it should be considered, these people here that speak tonight, including myself, it is a park, it was noted as a park. I would think legally, if you don't follow the rules of this donated property, that Mr. Stewart would be considered some type of lawsuit, because now you're going against the grain of the original intent of that property. A study, Lois Robbins has been in this community forever. She has served on the preservation committees. She is considered an expert. We have plenty of people in this audience that have lived in this community. I've had property here for 30 years. Anyone here, and I know most of the people here in this audience, have lived here for a long time. It's really important that we look at this property, whether we preserve it or it's a park, and it's meant for the public, not for people that border it. I mean, that's really important. There's probably trillium endangered species on that property. I have beautiful land. I live here because it is a beautiful piece of land. We all live here because we have gorgeous property. Trillium are considered endangered. I'm sure there's trillium on that property. Almost all of us have that. And what would be really great as an educational tool that we use for our students, we could have signs there talking about our shagbark hickory trees. We could talk about this is a 100-year-old oak tree. We live in a hardwood forest. I know properties around here. What is another question you really want to answer is what is the ecosystem level of this? I live on, I think there's 4 levels, right? What the state of Michigan considers about a preservation. I have like a 3.5 because I live in a hardwood forest. What's the nature of this? I mean, there's so many things to think about. Education, preservation, conflict of interest, and we are the majority. So please take all this into consideration. I've served on the board. I honor all of your work. I know it's not an easy job, but we are here to do the right thing as a community. And that's what I really request and ask that you guys all look into. Thank you.
Thanks, Deanna.
The last thing. Pardon me?
My name is Alice Hine. I live on Kent Road, and I'd like to talk about the park. I'd like it to be made accessible to everyone, the whole community, that we could have trails and bird watching and, you know, an area that we would be proud of to share and walk through. And I think from what I've seen of the website, the survey conducted, the majority of people want a community park for the community, not just the people that border it. Thank you.
Thanks, Alice.
Any further agenda items that anybody would like to address at this time? Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Next up is the consent agenda. We do not have anything at this time. We'll follow that up with the trustee comments. And Colleen, let's start down on your side, please.
The old mill did not meet RIT, so I don't have anything new to report on my committees.
Thank you.
Last month, we had a wayfinding committee meeting. It was a really good meeting. We had several people turn out within the community. We had representatives from DDA, from Planning Commission, from the high school, from, let's see, the township, the library. Am I missing anybody? We had everybody within the community. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to extend our reach to other entities to see if, while we're figuring out our wayfinding, our approach for signage and everything else, just to see if we can get everybody on the same page with everything. This is a process that's going to take a while, so I expect, like at the beginning of the year, of having another meeting to get everybody to regroup at this time.
Thank you.
I'll report out on the roads. I talked with Bob Huxwell today. They've done a lot of work on continuing to fill potholes. It seems to be a never-ending battle right now, just because of the severe deterioration in some of these roads. I've got a report here, and then this report here, this page here, was recently provided to all the council here as to what he's been working on, but including the installing the new salter. I think everybody knows that the mid-November snowfall caught everybody by surprise. Unfortunately, there were some residents that were highly critical of our DPW during that time. Bob echoed concern of those concerns. Didn't really specifically get into it. I think it was pretty much unfair that Bob would have to feel some residents' displeasure over maybe not getting things done as soon, but I told Bob, rest assured that I believe council and the majority of residents in the community believe they're doing a very good job, et cetera. So I just wanted to communicate that. For those that are a little frustrated, please be patient when unexpected snowfall hits. Thank you.
Thank you.
Planning Commission did not meet, so I have nothing to report for that.
Regarding Parks and Recreation, I think the big thing was the Christmas parade this year. I look at that as being a joint effort between Parks and Rec and the DDA. Just did a real nice job on it. It was sunny and mid-30s temperature, so it was ideal to be out there this year. And from what I observed, people I talked to, Matt, and I know Fred was very pleased with it. It was just a fun time. It was a real good experience, real positive experience. So we had a good participation on that. So that was something that was fun and big. And I'll get with Parks and Rec master plan a little bit later. But one additional point regarding Parks and Rec, which I think is huge, and terrific for the village, regards our concession stand over at Sherman Park and the dilapidated condition that's been in. And I think Clerk Edwards, Liz, has some updated information about that she'd like to share with us tonight.
I do. I had provided a memo to the village manager, and I think he gave it to everybody with grant updates. And I was concerned about the points we received on both of the grants. And after I typed the memo, I got an email from the DNR on Friday, and they are recommending approval of our trust fund grant, which we requested $33,000. Our match would be $11,100. And they've given us approval to do some base work starting now or in January. It'll be about 6 months before we get the funds, but they have recommended us for approval, and typically that means we will get the grant. So I'm very excited
Great
to report
news.
that.
Wow, that's some good news. Very nice, Liz. A lot of hard work, Liz. Thanks so much. And that's it for me. Yeah, thank you, Liz.
Finally.
Chief Guapis is on deck with Acumed, so I won't steal his thunder.
We are on the edge of our seats. All right. The DDA would like to invite council to the annual evaluation that they have every year. This year, that will be on January 14th. The times will come. I think in the past, council has been afternoon, maybe 1-ish. Don't hold me to that. Matt will definitely send us the information when that's confirmed, but we do have the date. And so anything that you have that you'd love to bring and share, that would be wonderful. The other thing is with Personnel Committee, we had a chance to have Dale's 30-day or 90-day evaluation. We had 4 council members, 4 staff members turn in their evaluations. We had a chance to sit down and meet with Dale, gave a review. We kind of reflected on some things and had some future goals and measures that he discussed with us. So that's where we're at with that.
So I was a little, just to comment on that, if you don't mind, I was a little disappointed because everybody knows I do not have home email for that. So I wasn't given any document in terms of form for that evaluation. So therefore, I never knew it went out because it was sent out via email and I didn't get it. All right, so I'm a little disappointed that I was not able to participate with that evaluation.
Well, you're more than welcome to. It's not that you can't. We definitely can. I mentioned it at the meeting when they were going out and when they would be due, and you were more than welcome to pick one up. I know Pat went in and picked one up paper-wise. Or, I'm sorry, you were going to. You ended up changing your mind. But he
I
did
went
request
iTech.
where to pick
I
one
went
up,
iTech, yeah.
paper-wise. But you're more than welcome to, and we
So there is
absolutely
a
can
hard
include
copy
it.
and there is a criteria. It'd be nice to know how that was all sorted out, so, yeah. Who
you can do
who
that.
did provide the feedback, by the way?
The council members and the staff.
Staff gave their boss their evaluation as well?
Correct.
How much does that weigh in?
Well, it's the same as you would any other place. It would be the same. You do a 360 review of your boss. That's how
Yeah.
it works.
And one of those members was Dale himself provided a self-evaluation for comparison too, so. It was nice to see how things lined up between how the perception was from the staff and council compared to where Dale thought, and, you know, everything was pretty much within acceptable parameters, I believe.
So what were the results?
Well, we had a chance to discuss those with Dale, and like I said, he had a chance to review what he was happy with, what he was concerned with, what his future goals are, and so that was our meeting today. We will have meeting minutes available, and we will definitely have those in there for you to look through.
So will the rest of council be able to have copies of the evaluation?
No, we never have. That's always been something that's in personnel and that goes in your personnel file. If that's something we'd like to discuss and change, that's something that we can discuss, but that's something we've never done as a council.
Does Dale get a chance to see who's reviewing you and read the review?
It was a combined comments, so everybody who commented on section 1 was combined, everybody who commented on section 2 was combined.
So if section 1 said, gave him an A+, and somebody gave him a Z, is that?
Oh, on the numbers, the
numbers,
numeric
yeah.
scale, it was, well, you can go ahead, because.
Yeah, what we did is we took all of the respondents and we put in an Excel file to show how many responses were in each rating, and then we calculated the average response of everybody who responded. We did not put names on who rated what. You know, we tried to keep that generic and keep names out of it. And we also had taken all of the comments that everybody provided and consolidated them into one consolidated.
Well, I'd be more than happy to have Dale read mine. I mean, it's coming from me, it's my stuff.
That's fine, if you'd like to, you're more than happy to give him a copy, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's fine.
And I can make one if you want me to. And Dan, we absolutely would love to have input, and then we can revise and send that out as the
Yeah.
updated, absolutely.
I would like that. Thanks.
All right,
So
excellent.
did we do that last time with Bill? Did we also evaluate with the staff? When he went through his 90 days?
We did both, whether we combined them or not, I can't remember, but we did both. So we can combine them and break it out into two
Well, you
sections, it doesn't
three
make a
weren't
difference.
on the personnel committee before, so that's why I'm asking this question.
Yeah, I don't recall the staff.
No.
I don't recall that.
We can
But
pull it
I
out
have
and
to-
we
I
can
have to
check
look.
bills, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to know
All right.
that.
Yep.
I just think before the review was given, it would just, I think, a heads up. I mean, I would like to know, it's like, okay, what the results were before we gave it to them.
That is not something that we've done with council, and I think that protects people to
No,
state
not
what
so
they'd
much
like
about-
to.
Not that they didn't come, just the overall rating, if you will.
Okay, like what the averages were?
Just so we know, like, what his review was. We don't, right now, personnel has not given council what his review was.
Right.
Is it possible to hear from Dale? Obviously, we're talking about Dale's right here.
Well,
You know,
he's
90
sitting
days
there.
is not very much to be taken on a village of this size, and in light of even him having recent open heart surgery. I'd like to hear from Dale in terms of what, maybe you're ready to respond, but I'm sure there were some accomplishments that you've had in a relatively short time. If you mind commenting?
No, not at all. First of all, I want to make it clear, and I think I have made it clear to every member of council, you are welcome to talk to me anytime, day or night, 7 days a week, about what's happening in the village. With some of you, I have more conversations with some than others, principally because some of you contact me more often, have more conversation with me. But I appreciate all that. I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to remarks from you on how I'm doing and what I'm doing, what you want me to do. And I think those of you who have talked to me at more length, you know that I'm not bashful to tell you what I think of a particular situation, a particular method of something. Now, I am going to now and will always be somewhat neutral with regard to discussions. If you come to me and say, well, here's what I feel about something, do you support me with doing it? That's not a good thing to do, because I'm not going to tell you. My job is to do what council as a whole decides. If you come to me and say, I want you to go do these things, depends on what those things are. If it's a minor thing and it's something that you want for your own personal information, I'll do my best to get that for you. If it's something that's going to require some significant amount of time, then I'm going to ask you to go to the council and get approval from the whole council to do it. With regard to the evaluation, I have mixed feelings with some of what occurred with that. I appreciate the input. I appreciate the comments. I've had an opportunity at the beginning of my discussion with the Personnel Committee to do a quick review of what was there, but obviously when the people that are about to talk to you about something are standing in front of you, you don't really have much time to read and digest what was presented to you. And I will take all of that with a grain of salt and all of it with some learning opportunities for me as to what you expect and what you want to do it. I want our coordination with this to be between myself and the council, that we have an open exchange, an open discussion, and I will say for the public's sake as well as the board's sake, I have not been disappointed in the discussions I've had with anybody on this council. And what you have said, no one has asked me to go do something that would affect another council member, would affect policy or anything else with regard to the village. So they have not put me in a position where I have to say to them, no, I can't do that, no, I won't do that. And that's not typical for communities. Many communities, people get on their own wavelength of what they're going to accomplish, what they want to accomplish. And one of the places that I interviewed, interestingly enough, and was within the final people being considered for the position, I just read in the newspaper not long ago they had a great controversy go on because one person on the council went to the person that they did choose and said, you go do this and get this accomplished, but don't tell anybody else. And if you do, you're going to be fired. Now, I would have had a real problem with that. Me and the person that had it happen to him, I would have said, you can't do that. There's no one person on this board that has the power independently to tell me what to do and how to do it. I will accommodate myself to all of you, and I think that I have been here long enough that I've proved that to every one of you. And I appreciate the conversations. I appreciate the opportunity. I think it speaks well of the person and what they're trying to do with the community, that they find the time in their busy schedules to come and talk to me about these things. And I can honestly tell you that every conversation I've had has been useful. And I learn a little bit more each time with those people as we're having that conversation. I'm sure that we're going to progress in getting things accomplished and getting things done. We may not always agree, but we all have the best interest of the community at heart. And in the same thing with residents. Residents can contact me and give me your information whenever you want to do that. Don't expect that if you do, that I'm necessarily going to agree with you and what you have to say to me. I'm not in my position to placate you. If the board has made a decision on a policy issue, that's what you're going to hear. That's what you're going to know. If you ask me what I think of it, you're not going to hear that because it's immaterial. And if the council wants to know what my position is on something, they will have seen it. They will have seen it in my memos or in my discussion with them. But with regard to policy issues, this is a council that doesn't always agree on everything together, but there is nobody that sits on this council that doesn't have the best interest of this village at heart in everything that they do. And you need to recognize that. You may not agree with them, and that's fine. Make your point. Make your discussion. But I'm very pleased to be here. I'm very pleased to have this opportunity. I appreciate what the council has allowed me to do with this surgery that I've had, and it's a little bit of miraculous that I'm even sitting here with you in this short period of time. It's been about 6 weeks since I had the open heart surgery, which left me with like an 8.5-inch incision mark on my chest. But I'm feeling a little bit better all the time. I am close to being back to full time. Tomorrow morning, I'm not likely to be in the office first place because I've been here since 9 o'clock this morning until we're done. But I am very pleased with what we're going on, and I think that we are on the right path with everything that we're doing. Everybody around us, the township, the sheriff, the fire department, everybody has made every effort they can to keep me informed of things, and I appreciate all that. This is a group of people that are sharing the information and sharing it with each other. So, would I like to have some of the remarks? I was disappointed that some of the remarks were lower than I expected. And I had that discussion with the Personnel Committee, and I said, I don't understand because I know what I've done and what I'm doing for the community. I don't understand how somebody could say that. And in some instances, it was about something that I've had no opportunity to do yet. And yet somebody graded that I was below average in doing it. It's like, well, I haven't done it. So, you don't really know yet whether I'm average or not average. Whatever, the point is that I'm satisfied with where we're at. I'm satisfied with what we're doing. I'm giving everything that I can to this job and will continue to do as long as I hold it.
And as your review shows, we are satisfied with you being here. We're glad to have you.
Good. Thank you, Dale.
Thanks, Dale.
Next up is our new business, and A will be the BGYA board appointment. You received at your spot when you got here today the listing of the current request for the BGYA board.
We're on 11, I think.
Oh.
Okay. That was made
I
8.
had my.
Gotcha.
the other copy. Okay.
You have this.
Would you like to step forward and share anything with us, or no? You don't have to, it's up to you.
That's what you're working.
I don't know if I believe you.
Thanks, Dale, because I didn't know it was going to make this meeting. That truly wasn't what I was here for, but you two in the office. But I appreciate it. The sooner I get some of these done, the better it is. But our board of directors were not required of any amount of people. The only people that were required is the executive board, the chairman, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer. And we can have as many board members as we want. And that list that you have is just about everybody that makes regular meetings. We have, I think, 7 or 8 volunteers that make the meetings. but we was more concerned of having, we removed several people from there, and good people. But we removed them because they can't make all the meetings. They're either working Kara in rec. Now, she can't make all the meetings, and if it comes down to a quorum, we got a problem. So that's where the list come from. Once all of you get the township, the village, and Groveland, and the school board approves that list goes to the Oakland County Court Family Division for their approval. They could reject it, but I highly doubt they would, because we meet with them all the time. They would have let us know by now if there was an issue, but that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Thank you.
If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them with it.
So what we're looking for is a suggested motion on the bottom there, if anybody's interested.
I'll motion to approve the Brandon Groveland Youth Assistance Executive Board and Board of Directors for 2020 as presented.
Support. Take your pick.
All right, motion by Councilman Butzer, supported by Councilman Skornicka. Do we have any questions, comments, discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much. We appreciate everything you guys do.
Thanks, Bob.
B will be the Joint Parks and Rec Master Plan.
Well, no, heck it out.
I'm just going to skip back to the other B. New business B would be the Acumed Group Billing Service Agreement.
You could be
Did
here
I
all
scare
night.
you there? Sorry about that. 2 B's in a row.
You're on.
I appreciate your
All right, so what you have in front of you is our Acumed billing contract for both the billing of our EMS calls and for the software that we use to collect patient data. It's considered our electronic patient care reporting software. We have been using this software now for 5 years. The last contract was in 2014. Prior to that, it was in 2009. We've been with Acumed that entire time. We're very happy with them, and as you notice, they have lowered the billing fees that they're charging us from a 7.39% to a 6%. So that's an overall savings to our department that we pay them 1.39%. Our software fee will remain the same, so there's zero change on that. And that'll be for a 5-year contract that'll take us to 2025. It's probably important to note, too, is that the fees that are paid, the billing fees, that comes out of the fire department budgets. That comes directly out of our billing fees for EMS calls for any of our transports. So, again, it doesn't come from the village or the township. It comes right out of the fire department.
Trustee Robinson called on that today, so I was able to call Kay. I remember seeing it, but I didn't have it in front of me. So.
Yep. No problem. That's call any time, much like Dale. I mean, that's, you know, I'm the chief, and if you've got a question, I'll be more than happy to answer it. So,
Chief, I have a question for you. Has the Brendan Township Legal approved the terms and
They have.
conditions? They have.
Yep. Yeah, and actually, they're very happy with it this time. The last addendum actually puts more power in our hands, which is what he wanted the first time. 5 years ago, and they're like, yeah, this is a general contract, this is what it's going to be. Obviously, they listened, or they had enough other attorneys give their input that, hey, we need to make some changes here, and they have done that, so he was extremely happy with the contract.
Based upon the provisions in the contract, do you feel there's going to be any concerns with being able to meet the projected run rates and things like that in order to stay within the terms of the contract?
No, we're fine with the run volume.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we're good.
And entertain a motion?
I move to approve the Acumed Group Billing Service Agreement effective January 1, 2020 through December 31st, 2024 on behalf of Brandon Township Fire
It's
Department.
25.
25.
I know, but it's, when the contract would end December 31st, 2024, because the next one would be the January 1.
Well, actually, yeah, it depends on how soon they recognize it. If you notice on the contract, it says December 1st, 2019, or the first day of the month immediately following the date this agreement is accepted by Acumed. So that means we're looking at January, unfortunately.
All right, so I'll amend it to approve the Acumed Group Billing Service Agreement effective January 1, 2020 through January 1st, 2025 on behalf of Braden Fire.
Support.
Any further questions, discussions? All right. And motion by Councilman Skornica, supported by Councilman Robinson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We thank you very much. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Next up is our unfinished business, and A will be the Wildlife Park. Ortonville Wildlife Preservation Park.
So I'd like to comment on the Wildlife Preservation Park. I believe that a park can be a preservation as well. I don't think they're one in two separate entities. So you can have a park, you can also have it be part of a preservation park when it comes to supporting the wildlife and the plants and trees, et cetera, around it. So a park in this case, this council did approve an ordinance to allow the park to be open to the public for natural trail hiking, not nature trail hiking, natural trail hiking. And natural trail hiking in this description would be, there are already trails there now. Anybody that's walked through it, Trustee George has been through it, he loved it. He went through an epiphany when he went through it, and I think anybody else that would walk through those trails would have an equal experience. Certainly it is beautiful, it is open to the public. I do believe that a sign and an entryway to that area needs to be put in there. And once we do approve the ordinance that's in front of us, actually, it's once we approve or deny it, okay, I'm not saying we will approve it, but then we will move towards proper signage and entryway to the park. So tonight, I would like to, and we've had our village manager put together through our legal an ordinance to protect the park. We all know about the violations that are taking place in that park, from illegally cutting of trees, building of structures back there, and now that we've heard a meeting or two ago that now there's illegal hunting back there when we know that the hunting is not allowed on that piece of property. So we want to protect it as much as we can, but still allow the public to be to go in and walk that area. And in doing so, our own sheriff recommended that we would have some redundant ordinances to protect a piece of property that large. And then also from our village manager, also recommending a similar ordinance to help protect that preservation park. So an ordinance was written, and I'd like to propose in motion today to approve the ordinance that's in front of us today. Does anybody, you want to read it? Would you care to read it, or?
Go ahead, Kelly.
Oh.
Well, I thought you volunteered.
Has there been a second?
He hasn't read it yet. I'm sorry.
We're going to read it.
I'm going to read the ordinance first.
Gotcha.
An ordinance to amend section 92.05 of chapter 92 of title 10 of the Code of Ordinances to adopt specific regulations for the Ortonville Wildlife Preservation Park. The village council hereby ordains, section 1, amendment of section 92.05 of chapter 92 of title 10, title 9 of the Code of Ordinances. The village council hereby amends section 92.05 of chapter 92 of title 9 of the Code of Ordinances by adding thereto a new subsection 92.05D to read as follows. D, in addition to the regulations specified above, the following regulations apply to the Ortonville Wildlife Preservation Park. 1, no off-road vehicles or motorbikes may be operated anywhere on the park property. 2, no bike or footpath trail shall be developed or established anywhere on or in the park. 3, no hunting of any type shall be allowed in the park. 4, use of the park shall be primarily activities designed to preserve, support, and protect the habitat of the property and the wildlife existing on the property. 5, the entire wildlife preservation park shall be open to the public for hiking and general use. The public is put on notice that much of the park is covered with bogs and wetlands, and therefore any use of the park is at the user's risk. 6, there shall be no trees cut down or any structures built in the park at any time. 7, there shall be no dumping of any material in the park at any time. 8, dogs shall not be allowed in the park that are not properly leashed and under the control of the owner of the dog. 9, excrement deposited by a dog in the park shall be collected in a disposable container by the custodian of the dog and disposed of at the appropriate off-site location. Section 2, effective date. The ordinance shall take effect 30 days after publication.
So I'd like to make a motion that we accept this ordinance as read.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Eschman, supported by Councilman Ravenson. Discussions, questions?
Yeah, I have a discussion or that I'd like to open up on this. I spoke with Dale and recently and expressed concerns as far as we both had concerns as far as anybody going into the park and as far as the village being held responsible and that kind of thing. I have some very deep concerns about that. So if anybody gets hurt or how often do we have to like send some sort of patrol out there to make sure that nobody's out there lost, stranded, or that kind of thing. So, as council, I'm asking that we address this to Dale to where he can look into this to see what liabilities that we have, maybe address our attorney and all that to see, as far as the village standpoint, what liabilities that we do have as far as people going in there, just to make sure that the village is protected. And if there's, insurance or anything like that, that has to be addressed.
But just for the matter, I mean, this park has always been open to the public, okay? So it has not been made aware of by the public that it's there and is existing to enter the park. Used to be able to even hunt on the property and used to be opened there. But since the illegal cutting of trees and building of structures, we had to put something in to protect the park from these abuses. So I believe that the concern over liability has always, our insurance as it relates to liability has always been there to protect the village, right? I mean, that park's always been opened. It's just now that we're making it more public, that it's there for the public use.
And by doing so, my concern is, just to make sure that, we are doing our due diligence. I mean, does the sheriff department or the fire department have to go in there and do some sort of random search or whatever, just to make sure that nobody's out there, lost or hurt or anything like that? Where's the liabilities? Is that correct, Dale?
Yeah, I think what we discussed is that it might be appropriate for the village to get a legal opinion as to what the existing liability is for the village with regard to that property for someone who, when we put this out and we say you're free to come in and walk it, but we know that there are dangers on that property. What do we need to do to protect ourselves? What do we need? Some kind of signage? Do we need something else that protects us? And if we don't, if we do something, what should it be? And if we don't do anything, where are we? Yeah, and so what we discussed is that I think it would be prudent if the village makes the decision that this is a parcel of land which is going to be preserved as much as possible in its original state, there's nothing wrong with that approach. If the council elects to have it more accessible by creating accessibility positions, times, and manners, all those things are true. But with each decision comes a potential for other liabilities. And my suggestion to you is that if at some point in time we need to have some analysis of that, we need to know, it's kind of like the issue of snow removal on sidewalks. If you don't do anything to remove snow from the sidewalks, you don't have the potential liability of somebody suing you because they fell, because it is the natural accumulation on the sidewalk. Once you start removing it, now you got to make sure there's no ice, there's no accumulation, all of these things, because you have undertaken to make that happen. And so, for instance, in Independence Township years ago, we never cleaned any of the safety paths, and they have miles and miles and miles of safety path, because if it's in its natural state, there's no liability. Once you start doing it, there is. Other communities have different ideas. In a size like the Village, we are more conscientious in keeping those things clean. But I had a call from a resident just recently, and I tried to get a hold of them and couldn't. But they were inquiring about why we weren't doing more to eliminate ice and stuff in front of their house. Well, there's an ordinance in the Village that says it's the residents' responsibility to get that stuff off. So if you know there's ice in front of your house, it's your job to go put that on there. Do we do it? Yes, we do it. And we're a backup for that. But the primary responsibility was the person who owns the adjoining property. And that's one of the ways that you can approach this, and the way that this village has approached it in the past. So that's just, I think we need to have some understanding of where we're going with that, and it would be helpful for us to have that.
So in this case, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought we were going to put a sign out where the entry would be. It wouldn't be like we're opening it up and cutting paths, and none of that's going to happen. So it will be left in its natural state. It's just that there's going to be a signage there so that the public knows where they can enter.
There's nothing in the ordinance as it's drafted that provides for that. There's nothing that says we're going to create a entrance or have a specific entrance be recognized. That's something you would have to do separately. But you don't have to put it in the ordinance to do it.
Correct.
That can be further discussion with the board as to how do they want to approach that. I'm just saying that with some things, if you start to do something, you have to look at what the extent of the liability you're undertaking. And but if you don't do anything, you also have some level of responsibility, because if someone goes into that property and gets hurt, and we don't know about it, potentially somebody could come after the village because they didn't do something. It's less likely if the more preserved it is in its natural state, in my opinion, the less liability we have, because everybody knows that we're not trying to make it safe for you to walk through there. If you choose to do it, you do it at your own risk. But just saying in the ordinance that you do it at your own risk doesn't mean we're free of liability.
Okay. That's a good point.
I would just want to comment too about the natural state is, I think because there's a lot of dead trees in there, and I think that those need to be cleaned up as well because of, any specific, when they have fallen through storms and whatnot, there's a lot of dead trees in there.
Yeah, this ordinance does not stop us from doing any studies to further or enhance or whatever to that piece of property. What it does do is protects the property today, and it allows and gives notice to the public that there is some place that can go and hike in a natural state, all right? But you're right. As with any hiking, you got the risk of turning an ankle. You got a risk of, getting into a mud bog, or you got a risk of a branch falling on you. A simple branch could severely hurt somebody. So I think you're entering in at your own risk regardless. But I agree with you. I don't think we need to go in there and cut up a bunch of trees, and, that's not the intent of this ordinance.
And this was drafted based on what council told me that they wanted to see in addition to what was in the original ordinance that we had. I have not tried to add something. I've not tried to suggest something more to you. I've just done what is done with it. These comments in the conversation that I had with the council member was simply that I think that there are some of the rest of this that it would be prudent for us to know.
Yep, and I think with this ordinance, it allows us to even further enforce the illegal activities that are going on in there even today.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was mentioned It was mentioned a month or two ago in our last meeting that there was more hunting, and they totally ignored the fact. But really, there's an ordinance to tell us that. Okay, yeah, the other parks you can't hunt in it, but there wasn't specific anything that calls out illegal hunting in this piece of property, because in the past it was allowed that you could hunt there. You no longer can with this ordinance.
Has DPW went in and cleaned up the
No.
removed? Okay,
No, we have not,
Opportunity.
no.
okay, just curious.
Any other comments, questions?
I have a comment, and Ron Sutton actually made a really good point. There is no signage there. There should be. There should have been many years ago, like, and what I'm suggesting is sometimes when you get committees and 15 people trying to agree on what color sign it should be, it could be a long time. So maybe just temporarily, let's say, let's put a couple, I think maybe we can ask Bob if he could stick a couple of posts, by the post office area there. And it's just temporary, out of not a cardboard, but out of maybe plywood, or say, Preservation Park with an arrow. I mean, at least there's something there. That's just one thought I had. But another thought I had, and I don't know, maybe Dale would know this more than I, but for example, if a kid gets hurt a small kid gets hurt at Crossman Park on one of those silly, very dangerous, rocky type things that I'm surprised nobody's gotten hurt so far, but we would somehow be liable to, for that, or how much, or whereas with with the park being preserved, it seems to me they're not going to get their fingers caught in a steel spring or something. It's just a thought.
And there are some dangers in both the Crossman Park and other situations where we have man-made items in place. The standard with most of those is if you've done all that you can reasonably do to make a property safe, then you've done what you need to do. The fact that some freak accident could happen where someone could get hurt, you don't have to protect against all of those things. But you can't get a piece of equipment and not research to make sure that there hasn't been any history of it. So if we bought a piece of property as an addition to that park and didn't check in to see, and it turns out that everybody knows that when you put these in, kids get their fingers pinched, and it is a danger, then it's on us.
Okay.
So you have to do your due diligence with it.
Another item that was brought up earlier was about the markers, and we did pay a lot of money for the survey. Somehow we need to, Dale, if I could challenge you, hopefully get support from the council to where we can maybe get our DPW to support us on getting some sort of stakes, permanent stakes, markers and all that to identify the borderline of the park.
Yeah, I thought that was done a while ago, or at least some of them I thought was done a while ago, so.
It was discussed, and
The follow through.
And
There
paid
was no-
for. We paid to have those markers installed permanently.
Well, who did we
Well,
pay
they
to
weren't
have them
permanent.
installed?
The surveyor, we paid to have additional markers added versus just the corners. We paid to have them put down the sides.
And they didn't do it?
They put extra stakes.
I
down. They
believe
had stakes
he
with
was
them.
supposed to come back and do, I need to look that up.
I think they just staked a little bit.
And then the
Yeah.
weather was bad and he was going to come back and Bill said he was coming back.
No, it was
Let's
just
look it up.
additional, if I recall, it was just additional stakes that we wanted because there was just, we asked for
Well,
extra, but
now
nothing was
people are
done
picking them up and tearing them out and all that, and
We found
it
that when
defeats
we
the-
first walked the park, that some of them had been taken down.
So, I guess we gotta stop dragging our feet. I mean, this happened, we did the survey several months back, so we gotta do something to get everything marked permanently,
I agree.
So what can we do to move forward and not talk about it? Let's just do it, get it done.
Let me do some research into what we contracted for, what we have.
Okay,
If there's a way to go to those people, we'll do that. If not, I'll come back to you.
Okay.
thank you.
Good.
I would like to kind of steer things back to the ordinance in front of us, though, because I think we're getting a little sidetracked. You know, I think we all agree that this is a very unique and special piece of property and deserves protection. But when I'm looking over at the ordinance, this is what I have in my notes today, is so far, the language in the ordinance, as Dale mentioned, he took what was provided and motioned at the council meetings and just reviewed it to make sure it was consistent legally. So he didn't change or modify anything in it to that. So I believe that the first draft of the ordinance was a motion that was drafted by one trustee, and then the additional amendments were also the wording and language of that was provided by one trustee. I don't believe there has been any real review or comparison between this and our existing ordinances in any formal way. So I would like to just one by one go through the points here. And D, number 1, no off-road vehicles or motorbikes may be operated anywhere on the park property. That's already covered under existing 92.05A, section 3, which says what's not allowed, causing any vehicle to be operated or parked except in areas designated for these purposes. Item number 4 in the new ordinance, use of parks shall be primarily activities designed to preserve, support, and protect the habitat. While section A2 in our existing regulation says another thing that's not allowed is interfering, injuring, destroying, impairing, and or removing of wildlife or the habitat of wildlife. So that's already covering protecting the habitat. Besides that, you know, if we're talking about sensitive habitat like wetlands, I also did check in both at the state and federal level, the wetlands that are in that park are on inventories at the state and federal level, are already protected by regulations at the state and federal level. So, you know, we've got existing things in there to protect the habitat and the wildlife. Number 6, there shall be no trees cut down or any structure built in the park at any time. That's already covered under our existing A5, says what's not allowed is defacing, marring, removing, or in any manner damaging any monument, park, improvement, tree, shrub, flower, plant, equipment, fixture, or any other earth or dirt or other property constituting a part of the park. Number 7, there should be no dumping of any material. And also number 9, excrement deposited by a dog shall be collected. That's already covered under A7 here, which states placing or depositing garbage, glass, tin cans, paper waste, or any other refuse in any location except in a container provided for that purpose. And for the number 8, dogs should not be allowed in the park that are not properly leashed. That's already covered under section A9, which states bringing an animal into the park which is not under leash with a maximum length of 6 feet and or allowing an animal in the custody of a person to remain in the park while not under such a leash. My point here is that the majority of the items in this new ordinance are already covered and included in our existing park ordinances, and they're therefore redundant and not needed. So that leaves us with the no bike or footpath shall be developed or established anywhere on and or in the park. No hunting of any type shall be allowed in the park, and the entire wildlife preservation park shall be open to the public for hiking and general use. The public is put on notice that much of the park is covered with bogs and wetlands, and therefore any use of the park is at the user's risk. As I said, I think all of us agree it's a special place. It's a unique piece of property, and we really do want to make sure that whatever we do in terms of an ordinance with this park really is a good fit for that piece of property and for what we really want. My feeling is that we have not done enough homework to really say that this is really the right ordinance. As I said, there's already a lot of redundancies with our existing, and I think if we did further review and a little further investigation, I think we could probably draft a much better ordinance that would be do a much better job at preserving the natural features in the park and also meeting our community's needs based upon the public input and their responses. So I still would urge us to wait on this until we do have time to do a few more formal investigations and get a little more facts and information, because we don't have at this time any supporting basis for this. We don't, other than our own ordinance, which has not been reviewed formally by council, other than, discussions like this. I've gotten a lot more information at council meetings that has been provided by the public than has been provided through the people who on this council are backing this proposal. So I really think that we should do our due diligence. We owe that to our community, especially when there's so many of them that have expressed a desire to see some paths. And when it comes to wildlife preserve and preserving and protecting the habitat, I know a lot of places where they do that. I feel that the best way to do that in a place like this, where you do have, as was mentioned, maybe potentially trilliums. Most people don't know what a trillium looks like. I do. A lot of people don't know what's sensitive habitat or not. And I think the best way to ensure that we don't have people inadvertently trampling protected species is to at least mark and define where it's acceptable to walk, I'm not talking about paved trails or anything, just there are existing human trails in there that have been put in by the property owners. Let's at least mark those, define them, and say, here's where you can walk, here's where you can safely walk, make it safe for people to walk on those existing trails and pathways, leave them in the primitive state, and ensure that people stay on those and don't go wandering in the sensitive areas where, they could potentially damage the habitat. And that's all I'm asking, is that we do this in a thoughtful, measured way, and not just rush into an ordinance. We already know that if, Oakland County Sheriff Office said our existing ordinance covers all of the activities that were concerns. We have time to take a look at this and do it right, and I just hope that we will take a little time, review it and do it right, not just push something through because of some concerns, because we know we can address those now with the Oakland County Sheriff with our existing ordinance. And that's all I have to say.
I'd like to also have something to say here. This has been dragged out for over a year. So, for several months, Bill did not, our old village manager, he did not make us aware that there was even an ordinance in place. I was never, ever told about that. And then somehow somebody brings it up months later, actually after he leaves, that there was some sort of ordinance in place. And over a year ago, Lieutenant Glover asked us if we could have some sort of ordinance so that he could enforce what's going on. So, we can apply this. I feel that we should apply this now. And then if we want to also investigate and further make further changes, we as a council, we can do that in one meeting, you know what I mean? But in the meantime, here we are dragging it out again. One thing about this council, we drag so much stuff out and it gets so frustrating to me, It's like, let's get it done, Yes, we could maybe make a change after we do more research, but these are key points right here that we need to focus on, in my opinion.
And as I stated, most of them are already covered under our existing ordinance.
But also, if you talk with our attorney, and from my understanding with our attorney and also with Dale, it doesn't hurt to be a little redundant too, to make sure that all this information's out there. It helps that man to go out there and enforce what we're trying to do.
So Larry, if I understand you correctly, so, and I understand that, and I'm aware that there are repetition on some of these. However, because this is specific to the wildlife preservation part, I think it's in our best interest to have the ordinances in one spot. Otherwise, I think if there's confusion, some of the violations are over here under the generalized parking rules, and now we have then another ordinance that is just the specific ones that are for the wildlife. I think it's, if we're going to have it, that we have everything pertaining to the stipulations in the ordinance specified under the wildlife preservation part, rather than having a two-piece or.
Well, if we
a
wanna do
perfect
that,
example of that is we had 2 ZBA meetings today, and we got stuff over here and stuff over here. And how do we enforce anything for zoning when even Bill Denon says, you guys got a mess, basically. It's so. Yeah, have it specific, for the Ortonville Wildlife Preservation Park, and then we can move forward from there. Instead of, a little bit here and there, and then people can say, well, we didn't know about that. I didn't even know about the original ordinance. That's sad,
All of the items that are listed here, every single one, except one sentence, is on 92.05A, which covers all of the parks in our village. They're all numbered, they are all exactly here, different wordings, different order. Every single thing is here except The public is put on notice that much of the park is covered in bogs and wetlands, and therefore any use of the park is at user's risk. That, if we'd like to make a separate ordinance for, okay, maybe doable. Dogs shall not be allowed in the park? No, pets shall not be allowed in the park unless leashed. Excrement must be cleaned up from pets, not just dogs. We really have to look at what we're doing because, I can let my horse through there and they can poop all over. We have to pay attention to what we're doing thoroughly the very first time, not make mistakes, not leave loopholes, not rush to things quickly as we always do and have to go back because we've made a mistake. That's a big concern of mine. Redundancy doesn't stop what people do where they're not supposed to do it. We've had this in order since 1985. People are abusing properties since 1985. This isn't the only property. They abuse Narren. I'm so tired of people dumping their garbage in Narren's parking lot. You know what? It's been going on. We have an ordinance. This is no different. This shouldn't be treated any different than any of our other parks. They're all have an ordinance. They all should be followed. They all should not be abused. I mean, that's just common sense. I don't know why we've decided this is a different space to be treated any differently. If we would like to repeat them for this park, let's put all 4 parks separately with an ordinance and repeat them for all 4 parks. It doesn't make sense to continue to recreate the wheel. You're now asking people to look 2 different places. There is one place, parks, don't do these things in a park. Common sense.
But that
One
other
spot,
ordinance
one
wasn't
page.
listed for this specific park.
It is. All of our
It
village
covers
park
all
properties are all under 92.05A. Every single one. And it's all the same exact thing. So if there's an abuse, we need to address the abuse, not a new ordinance.
So it's not.
Well,
So-
some of the abuse.
My question to you, Dan, was, a couple of people have mentioned, we've had, for the past 3 months, there's been people giving us professional documents, defining preservation, defining those information to us. What professional or scientific support or assessments do you have to support your opinion that this is a preservation park? I mean, I know you've given us your opinion, but how have you defined this legally or professionally or scientifically?
First of all, it's just not me, all right?
You
There are
created
many
an
people-
ordinance
there are
that
many
you would like
people-
reviewed.
It's all about the protection and the elimination of the widespread abuse of motorbikes, quad bikes, ORVs, chainsawing and cutting of trees. That's what this ordinance stops, right?
So what
And
professional or
you-
scientific support do you have for your opinion that this should be a preservation park, not a Ortonville park that it's
It's
been?
called common sense.
Yeah.
Okay, what support do you have for your personal opinion? Is there any? We
Well,
have seen
I
nothing
think-
in
I
front
think-
of us,
I
but
think-
yet we've all brought in volumes, and they have asked us to
There's a
educate
motion out
ourselves.
there, and the support will be.
And this is a
that's-
discussion period, so I'm
Yep.
asking questions of the ordinance. I can't vote on an ordinance when I don't know what the background and the basis is, when people are asking me to educate myself. Where is the education in front of us for this?
This is not going to be, I don't believe, on the National Register. I mean.
No, it
yeah,
actually
no,
is. I have a
Barry,
map.
no, let me finish.
Okay, so if you
It's a
don't
word.
mind, I haven't had a chance to speak yet, and I had a couple more questions.
Okay.
If this ordinance only includes one park, why are we not including the other parks as a separate ordinance? If we pulled this out from the main ordinance, why wouldn't we do that with all 4? Is that something we plan to do in the future?
That's your prerogative as a trustee to bring that to council.
Okay. So why are some of the council members against a forage management plan or a committee that will review these DNR assessments of this park? 10 years ago, that was put into our master plan. It's been a constant request for 2 years. And I guess I'd like some input so we can figure out how to fix that, how to better, figure out who we'd like to talk to us about that, how we can come to doing what we need to be doing for this piece of property. What do we need here to bring, forward? What more information do we need? I guess I'm looking for input on that.
It's a shame that person didn't show up here in the public comments. But you know
Which
what?
person?
If I were to read everything that brought to me for questioning.
This is my question. I have
I
sat
thought-
down
what
with
did- what
6
did-
different people with over 100 years of experience. DNR, Oakland County, Genesee County, Washington State Parks, and Snohomish Parks. All of them have said these are 2 things that we should look into if we are going to leave a piece of property undeveloped. For 3 months, I have asked, can we please do this? Last month, I made a motion, can we please do this? This is a request from us, from the people that know what they're doing. How can we better educate ourselves to look into this, to assess this? What can I do to help people to better
So
educate?
what I can say, and I'll echo what Trustee Skornicka mentioned here tonight, is just because and I believe it was also mentioned from another, this ordinance doesn't stop us from doing additional research on that property. It doesn't.
Okay.
This ordinance takes care of specific things that, and the widespread abuse that was been going on in that property, to where our sheriff department can cite that ordinance specifically to that park to go back there and take care of illegal activity. If you want to do more research, put signage up where there's delicate plants out there. Go pluck them in the ground. That'd be nice. Yeah. But it's not development, but you know how natural trails are out there. They put some nice little signs and say, hey, this is plant so-and-so. Maybe I'm not a horticulturist. I don't know all the plants out there, but certainly if there's wetlands out there, you can put wetland signs where you're entering wetlands. I mean, you can do things to improve the property, but this ordinance doesn't stop from doing that.
Yeah, but if the stated purpose of this ordinance is to stop the activities like motorbiking and other things, as you've stated, our existing ordinance does that. There's no
Correct.
need for this just to end those activities. So that's why I question what additional value do we get from having a special ordinance above and beyond enforcing our existing ordinances?
You made the redundancy very clear, and I think we've already talked about it. We've had a sheriff out here specifically say there's nothing wrong, and it will even help to have redundancy ordinances specific to this piece of property. Our own village manager has commented that. You've made your point, Larry. There are redundancies. No one's denying that. Nobody's denying that.
Redundancy would help him. I think just being aware of the existing ordinance is what he said would help him.
Thank you.
I never said anything about redundancy. I don't care what ordinance that this council comes up with, give us something to enforce. I've heard complaints for the last 4 years about that park, about about motorcycles back in there, trees being cut down, buildings being built back there, blinds being back there, but never has anybody come to us with a specific address, a specific person's name to file a complaint for us to act on. And when we talked about the survey, which was months ago, I said, give us a survey so that we know where the trespassing lines are. If I walked back there right now, I wouldn't, the people that live up on Crescent Hill, I wouldn't know what the difference is from their backyard and what's that is. So you're asking us, there's all this talk about enforcing this stuff, give me something to enforce. And I've heard even council members that are here talk about knowing specifics, people that have been back there. I've never received one phone call about anybody that's trespassing about there, who's hunting back there, who's cutting trees, nothing. So I don't care what ordinance you have. Once you have an ordinance, we will enforce it. It doesn't matter whether there's redundancy in it or not. If it specifically states it for that park, we'll enforce it.
Yeah, it's a shame that our previous village management did not report that to you, because that's where it went to, right to our office, and it went stated specifically where, when, and how. So it's a shame that they did not carry it through to our sheriff. And if it required me to do that, I would have called you directly.
Well, to be honest with you, I have expected somebody to say something if you have the knowledge. I mean, we do not take, confidential informants giving us information and take that information and act on it. You got to give us something.
Agreed.
And we'll act on it. But I'm not going to, I can't pull this stuff out of the air and enforce it, so.
Yeah. Point taken.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I did have another question. I know Mark mentioned the legal concerns, and I guess my question is, how do these legal concerns differ from any other park? I mean, I guess, you were saying if you put in paths, and I know Dale did too, not just you, Mark, but like if you put in paths or you develop something or groom them, I mean, how do we have other village and township, state or federal parks? They're going to be utilized whether we put a path in or not. How does that change the legalities or nobody would have parks anywhere. I mean, I guess, you know,
That's
look
why
at
I
Cosmic Park.
addressed the question to Dale. I was hoping council,
Right.
like I said, would support me to be able to have him look into where do our liabilities stand? How often do we have to send somebody through, to make sure nobody's out there and asking for help and all that kind of stuff? Because it's not being patrolled. Other parks, you can walk in anytime. I'm assuming that the sheriff department goes through all the other parks on a daily basis. What about there? How often do we need to go through there? That's just a conversation I had,
Right.
Even outside liabilities, I just want to make sure that people are protected, you know what I mean? I'd hate to see somebody go back there hiking and trip and fall, and then they're by themselves, you know what I mean? I don't know how the cell phone coverage is.
Well, we
back
can't,
there.
we can't close it down to anybody, and I'll be honest with you, there are cities, the city of Troy has a wildlife preservation area that is an enter at your own risk without developed trails. If there is an opening, there's a sign right there, and you can go in there and you can hike around. But there is no trails in there. It's basically natural trail hiking. So, yeah, it's out there. They don't police it. You go ask them how many times they walk through there looking for people. They don't do that. That's not practical, right? But you got an area, if somebody needs help, they call for help, whether it's a whistle, whether it's a cell phone, and you get a GPS coordinates.
I would
and you
just
go in.
feel better knowing from, legal standpoint, that we're
And,
okay.
and separate to that, Dale said he would look into that,
Okay.
right? So I think that's valid. I really do.
So what if we postpone this?
I'm tired of postponing.
All right, are there any other further questions, comments, discussions? Hearing none, we have a motion on the table by Councilman Eschman, supported by Councilman Robinson. Liz, can we please have a roll call vote on that? Eschman?
Yes.
George?
No.
Hayden?
No.
Robinson?
Yes.
Skornica?
Yes.
Rice?
No?
Watsu?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-3. Next up,
But be it noted that Manager Stewart is going to still follow up to see what we're going to do and how we should act in the best interest, and we can modify amendments as needed with the ordinance.
And also maybe some temporary signs.
Yep.
Some temporary signs.
I don't
We'll-
believe we
we'll-
discussed that. That's a
Maybe
whole nother line item of expense.
We'll have to figure out what we want on the sign and where we want to put it. So, yeah, that signage needs to be
Or if.
addressed.
I'm just passing it along from her.
Yep.
Next up is B, which is our Joint Parks and Rec Master Plan. And we have been given on December 9th the current draft of the plan. And we had the ability to discuss any concerns, changes, questions with Fred or with Pat. So now we are looking at our kind of last draft of what we'd like to give some input on.
Is Fred still here?
He wasn't never here.
Oh, okay, I mean, yeah.
I have some serious questions on what was put in here.
And did you address those with Fred?
I gave him my thought about what our direction was from our village master plan, and obviously, he must have missed some things.
Do you have specifics, Dan?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So, on page 37, we'll start there. So I thought that the Brandon Township nixed the whole Iron Bell Trail. He was instructed, I believe the last time he was here, to remove any trail comments as it relates to Bell Ann Trail, or the Iron Bell Trail, and yet it's still in this master plan. So how is that, I mean, he specifically said he was instructed to remove the Iron Bell Trail information, and it's still listed here under item number 4 on page 37.
So that would be something that you would ask him, and because I'm not sure how.
And that paragraph also cites figure 14. You go to figure 14 and there's nothing there. And the header for figure 14 says trails and pathways. So there's no picture here, but yet it cites figure 14 on page 39.
So that would be handled with Fred.
You all right? And then,
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We're sharing a copy.
Yeah.
You don't have it?
I'm teaching her how to read, okay?
I have the wrong copy with me. Sorry.
Yeah, so there's some things on here. I don't know whether it's relating to the township or the village, so.
Which page are you on that at?
Still on page 37. It says, provide access points along the walk/bike system. Where is that? Because if, the township nipped it, where is that referring to?
Because this is a carryover from
It even says
2015,
amenities such as a trail map. So where are
It's
these?
with 4, these are the bullet points for
Yeah.
4, which is the Iron Bell Trail.
Yeah. So my thought is that according to what Brandon Township instructions for him, I thought he was supposed to remove that, and it does, yeah. So then,
Maybe trustee George could respond if he has,
Because he was part of that committee, right?
no, he's out there talking to.
I mean, I'm just saying.
We've said pathways,
Because
right?
that's
That's
our
all.
No, even.
okay, so page 41, it starts where it is a table, all right? It has specific projects and tasks described. It shows what the estimated cost would be, and then who the funding source is. So in many of these, starting on page 41, it shows that funds are coming out of the village fund for the new park development. It also shows for parkland acquisition, so where are we buying property? And it says it's coming out of the village general fund. I'm not aware of anybody buying any property. So why would it state it's coming out of the village general fund?
Under new park development? I
Yeah,
only see
acquire
one
land for
line
the
on it.
development of a community parks and trails which offer location, setting, size appropriate for, okay, so are we thinking, or where is the land acquisition coming from? And yet it says it's coming out of the village fund.
That's if the village was to purchase property, they would. If the township was to purchase property. If not, you could receive it through a grant or donation.
There's-
If you don't have something like this, then how can you receive a grant if you said, we are open to a land development or community park, say we choose to purchase this property, who knows where in the village, we don't have this available in our master plan, they're not going to give you the grant. So we're saying that we would like to be interested if something becomes available as a park. Not
This is-
that that's on our current.
It's labeled right here, capital improvement schedule.
Correct.
Table 10, and none of us have approved any land acquisitions. That's going to come out of our general fund.
And
There is not a
potential
specific
funding
place.
sources. It doesn't say they're guaranteed. It says potential funding sources.
What is the timeframe? Oh, here it is.
Short term.
Yeah. So that's if you receive a grant, you have it in place, so these are the things that you could do. So you could show, yes, you have an
So this
idea,
would-
a plan.
Okay, so the next page, and this is to my point, right? We're talking about a lot of village funding, which I know we don't have. So page 42, community-wide walkway bikeway system. So we know we're improving sidewalks, we know that it's a continuous thing, but here you got $15,000 designated to a walk bikeway master plan that this village, this council hasn't approved $15,000 for a path, so why is it in there?
Township and village general funds, grants and donations. So we could contribute $1 out of that if we wanted to. It's a $15,000 total between all of those entities.
But again,
It
we
leaves
didn't
it open.
approve that we would even do it, so it's in there saying that we're going to. So
No,
it's saying that we're gonna pull money out of the general fund for that project.
Keep in mind, Dan, this is a plan. It doesn't mean any of this is necessarily going to be implemented. That all has to be done when it comes to our budgeting process. If we get to our budgeting process, we determine, hey, we don't have money, we're not gonna fund that stuff. It's as simple as that. But you have to have a plan in place to at least have some ideas of when you do have money, where to put the money to.
Again, there's many projects here, initiate engineering and construction of a plan. Right here, it says it's coming out of general fund. I've got specifics, I've got concerns over the cost of these, and that we're sitting here approving a plan in which we did not talk about the funding of any one of these projects.
And you have had 5 weeks to talk to Fred personally, who drafted the plan.
Wasn't 5 weeks?
5
I
weeks.
did
We
not
received
get
this a
this
week
5
before our
weeks.
last meeting.
Just got it on Monday.
A week before our last meeting,
I
these
just
items
got
were the
this.
same exact things on the
No,
last
they were
draft.
not. We did not have a lot of
No,
this.
this right here was the same thing. And so was
Yes.
the, both of those items were on the last draft.
And what we had said is that this has a lot of stuff needs to be
Right.
stripped out because it's not.
But I'm
relevant.
talking about these items.
Yes, those
that- yeah.
items were there, and
Right.
those were part of the items we had concerns.
Right.
If I can share maybe some of my feedback and input that I gathered, I think that might help with a little bit of this. If we go back up to pages 12 and 13 in the early section, you can see that at 12, 13, and 14, an entire section was dedicated to trail and pathway planning that has been completely struck out from the first portion of the plan. And therefore, when you get back down to, as Dan has pointed out correctly, I believe, starting actually on page 37, it starts even before he was in there, about the action plan. Item number 4 in the, item number 4 in the action plan is establish a continuous community walk, bike pathway system. And I think that since they are striking out that entire section in the first part, I think that this entire section here probably also needs to be struck, since it's been taken out from the first part.
Yep.
And that also goes to the points that Dan was raising regarding to the new park development, where they talk about actually, let's see, I had it on page 42, the first community-wide walk bikeway system. That whole section needs to be reviewed. There might be a few elements to keep, but I think that a lot of that should also be stripped out, simply because if they're taking it out of the first section, then they should also go through and remove the other references to it where it occurs. And I think that that still needs to be done. One thing specifically is on page 35, they do specifically still mention skate park, and that should be removed out of the.
And I think that was brought up last time,
Yep,
too.
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I still see it in this draft, refurbished parking areas, walkways, and then it also says, and skate park pavement services as needed. So that was, I guess an oversight on his part.
And I went over this with
Yeah.
Fred, so those are oversights on my part too.
And the other thing is, we're back up to page 26. I think that since we are considering Ortonville Wildlife Preservation Park as one of the park properties, I think that on page 26, they state that all village parks are ranked as 4 because they meet accessibility guidelines. And I think that we need to have them revise that or check into that, because actually, the Ortonville Wildlife Preservation Park would not meet accessibility guidelines. And therefore, we probably should lower our rating within the village to 3. Most of the facilities park areas meet accessibility guidelines.
Yep.
Those were the things I got so far. Let's see if there's anything else. And of course, they only just had the public input, so that section needs to be updated too.
Yep.
For the current public input.
I have a question. Pat, you might know the answer. On page 41, the objectives, was that recent categorically decided, or are these old objection ratings?
These are, the only changes in there really, Colleen, is anything you see in this entire document with the red in it has been
That's the only
struck
thing
out.
that's been- okay.
Yep, that's the adjustments.
these are not
And I'm not
things-
saying that's 100%, but that's pretty much 100%, yeah.
Okay, so the township has not looked this over and reevaluated their priorities. This is how it's been, they're just maintaining those same priorities.
As best as we have right now, yes, what you're looking at. But anything you saw in red, Fred was struck out, and I sat with Fred and we went through it. Not totally from a township standpoint, but anything what we felt was village-related, we did.
Okay.
So that's why you see the,
So is it fair to say also that the cost estimates that are there too are the same as what they put in the previous?
we're going to say for
5
now.
years.
We're going to say for now, yeah. And again, I know I realize on this, what I was going to say at the front end is, Larry mentioned it, we had the public input last Wednesday. night, and I thought that was good. There is an upcoming joint session that we need to take care of, and I haven't heard anything on that, Liz. Has any kind of a date on that yet, have you? No. So again, on the joint session, I remember sitting at various, in my time here about a year ago, a joint session with the Planning Commission and the village and things like that. They can get quite spirited, as I guess to put it mildly. So we could still bring up a lot of these points and concerns that you have. I'm assuming they'll come up at this joint session if need be. But it would be nice. I think a lot of these that you're bringing up, it's just an oversight on Fred's part from a township standpoint. But village-wise, we went over this as best as we could, and there's going to be things you're going to find. I'm waiting, of course, to put my proposal through for trail development in the Preservation Park, and we'll go through that one more time, just as a matter of formality. I did remove it at the council's request. As Dale would say, the majority of the council wanted the trail development removed from the Parks and Rec master plan, which we did. So I'm assuming that's what you see struck out in red. Am I right? So we did the best we could there to do that. However, you know how I am. I will also at some point, I hope quicker rather than later, just formally to get it on the record that I would like to propose that we put it back in there and we'll get a 4-3 negative vote. I get that, but I'm gonna just for a public record get it on there. Okay, so I'm on. Bottom line, Dan, I say, it's your ball and your park and your rules right now.
It's unfortunate you say that, you keep targeting me, but there are many people, many residents that enjoy that park. And to say it's my fault to protect that property from chainsawing, motorcycles tearing up the park back there that you love so much, Mr. George, all right? To say it's my initiative, I'm protecting a park that our residents own and they deserve, all right?
All right,
Thank you.
hold on a minute, gentlemen. We are on the Parks and Rec master plan, not the park property. So can we stay on?
So yeah, so bottom
master
line
plan?
on the Parks and Rec master plan, I'm saying we've got a joint session coming up. So you can, I'm assuming some of these things will come up on that. My only thing is based again on what happened recently in Liz's case. Bottom line is this sucker has to get in at some point in time. So that we can apply for grants in that. And Fred's done a great job of getting grant money. Liz has done a great job of getting grant money, and I'd like to see that continue. So what I don't want to see happen here, and I don't want to see this dragged out because I'm tired, but what I don't want to see happen is how long the actual master plan, went, and not just specific Parks and Rec, but that master plan was killer for me. It was just incredibly long, tedious, and non-productive in a lot of ways. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen to the Parks and Rec plan.
We're not even done with our master plan yet.
Oh, that's still,
I'm going to cut you off. I'm sorry, Liz
we
had something too.
would like to get the Parks and Rec through. And then for that, I say I'll pull out anything at this point till I can get better equipment in my own field and my own reps and
Liz
things
had
like
something
that.
to share too.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Liz.
I have received, and I, for some reason, can't access it from my email here, from Fred, like a timetable of events to happen. And I think that there might be a suggested meeting date on there. I will forward it to everybody tomorrow morning.
That'd be swell, yeah.
Dan, I will text you that.
Thank you.
Because I texted Fred today if he had a date. I didn't get anything back from him, so.
Mark?
I've just got a couple points, like on page 41, where, Pat, you line through the red stuff, and I get that.
Yep.
But in that same box, on page 41, it says, and continue to preservation of the environmentally sensitive areas. That's the wildlife preservation part to
Positively,
me.
positively.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to make sure. And
That we
then-
worded it that way so it would look nice.
Yeah, it's just a word after all.
We don't
Preserve.
title it then, just leave it as just generic.
We liked it that way.
Well, I would say, would that include Narren, where we have the creek? That would include, over near the
And-
mill, where we have the creek. I mean, I think that contains all of our areas where we're
And then
being careful. We don't
and
want to
then-
just do one.
And then also on page, for action plans, On page 37, acquire and develop future parkland and open space. The first bullet, preserve natural features and would provide a setting for walking paths, habitat preservation, wildlife, natural resources-based activities. Just getting back to a couple of 40 minutes ago, I mean, we're just trying to protect some of the stuff, the wildlife, and the humans can get there too if they want, you know. They can walk those trails. So I wanted to get that, and also back to page 29, under Public Workshop, in September of 2014, that event for the Public Workshop, it kind of blew me away. There were only approximately 24 people that was in on this Parks and Rec and Township and Ortonville, and 24 people. That means 2 bodies of something. I mean, not that many people when you think about it. So it must have been a secret. I'm not sure, but even in the bullet point down on page 29, a little bit further down, it's preserve our wetlands and natural features. That's what the people wanted. Well, 1 of 24 or so. And the value of the open space, to preserve open space. There's a lot of things that the people wanted. Well, not that many people showed up, but the 24 people that showed up. And the last thing I wanted to bring, I just think the whole thing needs to be a little bit redone. And you guys may have found it. I couldn't find the walkways in Crossman Park. I looked Thursday and Friday.
Thank you.
You've got a lot of time on your hands.
Thank you.
I could not find them.
Thank you. No, I don't have a clue.
They're not there.
I don't have a clue what's going on.
And then in Sherman Park, well, there's walkways there too. Just couldn't find them.
They're around the bases.
Okay,
Sidewalks.
maybe they're connecting underground.
Bases.
Where the power line should be. But,
Did you look around the parking lot?
I guess that could have been it.
walkway through that one side entrance.
Mark, you don't have a vision.
But anyhow, there's a couple things that, you know, I don't know if I can make a comment on this. Is it possible? Where all the red is and these maps, you can't even, this could be Ohio for the size of it. I mean, I can't see. I know you can't either. But if
That's true.
if we could get rid of some of the pages, it would make it so much more simpler.
Working on it.
Just a draft.
Working on it.
I have a question.
That's why
On
we
page
need electronic package.
29, back to what,
It's the
Mark's
two-screen,
point,
Larry.
the public workshop, when we're quoting the 2014 plan, should that be updated with our new numbers?
Yes, it will be.
Okay.
It
I
will
thought
be.
I made- and-
Will it be integrated or replaced?
Well, that's a good question.
I
I'm
think
just
it would
saying
be
it's definitely
replaced,
going to
'cause
at
this is
least
our-
be integrated. I assume it might even replace it.
I would think it'd be replaced, because that's
Right.
what we're, the
Exactly.
whole point. And out of curiosity, how many people were in attendance at the Wednesday?
Less than 24.
But
You
then
could've
you
beat it
also
by 1 or
had
2.
input, paper input received also.
10 people were.
We know there's a large contingent out there online, so.
Those were village residents,
I
township
did,
residents?
I happened to
know.
record the
Close.
meeting, so I think it was-
Councilman George, isn't there an issue that also needs to be addressed about sharing the cost of the preparation of this master plan with the township?
That would be true.
I was advised by the supervisor that this board needs to do something, and I guess in the past you've agreed to share that
Typically
cost
50-50.
50/50 with them.
50-50.
So sometime, regardless of what you do with, if you want more action on this, I think it would be appropriate for the board to pass something to authorize.
I
that
assume that'll come up during the
cost.
joint session. We'll hammer that out.
Do you
Well,
agree,
I was
do you
told
agree
me
that
that
the village
we needed
residents
to do
ought to
it
pay
tonight.
double tax to Brandon Township to take care of recreation? We already pay a Brandon Township tax now, and they want us to come back and offer more money to offset what?
Well, is this, are we speaking specifically about the preparation of this report?
Maybe
I
at
would
this
say in
moment.
general, I mean,
It
but
seems that way.
It's a Brandon Township.
I know
We pay Brandon
historically.
Township
All I'm
tax.
saying there, Dan, my understanding is historically that has been the case. So there's nothing changed there.
I don't think we should pay them additional money.
Well, that'd
Our
be something new,
taxpayers
but
pay
I'm just
enough
saying
Brandon
historically
Township
that has
tax
been the
already.
case.
The village taxpayers keep paying double.
Yeah, I understand that aspect. On the other hand, if we didn't go in with Brandon on this one, then we would have to create our own and pay completely for a complete master plan just so sharing the cost does make sense. Is 50/50 a fair split? Maybe
But
not.
couldn't we piggyback out of that with our own, within our own master plan where we're alluding to the recreation?
We still need a
I will say this.
Hey, that's an idea. Maybe we can
think
ask them to
that-
pay for half our
Master
master
plan for the
plan.
rec has to be a separate document.
Yeah, I think you have to have
From your- from your regular
a
master plan.
separate Parks and Rec plan.
I do know this much.
Down here?
I do know this much,
They have to be separate.
trustees over there. What Fred did do through some urging and was successful, the changes you see in here were initiated by Fred, not by the consulting company. So if you remember, the big hassle we had going back and forth was, we're sending this company these changes. What I felt then was to expedite this, I know we got enough competency here, get the darn master plan from them. I don't care if it's in PDF file format or Word document format or whatever, we'll make those changes ourselves and save ourselves money. So that's what Fred did. So if you see some things here, Fred at least got this document from the consulting company, so they're not making these changes yet.
And my understanding of the amount of the fee is, it's not an extraordinary amount, it's like $1,000 for the village, $1,000 for the township.
Historically.
So it's not like we're talking with zoning ordinance or some other kind of review where it's 10, 15, 20,000.
And the way
Yeah.
I look at it, like you say, we need
Correct.
to create our own.
Much
We
lower.
need to go in and share with them, or we need to give it to them and not have any suggestions and let them do it and pay for it, and then they can decide what's going on. So I mean,
Well,
I
the
think,
bottom line is, what
Well,
I
then we
hope our
need to create
intentions
our
are
own.
is to give
Those
this
are
to
our
the
choices.
consulting company, pretty much done.
Right.
And just say, hey, whatever you do to mass produce this and make it look nice, that's fine. But we're not having you change language and things like that, and we'll do that ourselves.
You know, if we come down and take a look and consider the funding for it, though, in terms of the benefit of who benefits from this plan, I would say that the township is the one who generally benefits much more so than we do in terms of grant funding and things like that. Our opportunities for grant funding, especially
For 1 square
considering
mile.
the type of development we might be able to get for Parks and Rec, is really rather minimal. So, I mean, yeah, it helps us to get for some grants maybe, but I think the township is the one who really utilizes that grant money much more so than we do.
I
So I
agree.
think that they should,
It's true.
in fairness, I would think it would be okay to ask them to take a larger share of the cost of the plan too.
So,
so we just earned a
I-
$33,000 grant by
I was
spending
gonna say-
$1,000.
I was gonna
I'm
say,
in.
yep, that was, I
an
think that's
investment.
changing with the expertise of
We'll make it a $32,000 grant.
village clerk
Because we spent
Edwards,
$1,000.
okay? That kind of stuff is changing. Am I right on that,
I think
Liz?
it's petty for them to ask $1,000 from the village when we do all these in-kind services. I'm sure we send them a bill every time Bob and his team go out and help with that. We don't.
We do
right?
bill them.
We do bill them?
Mhm, correct.
Do we
For
bill them?
everything?
Yes.
No, we don't.
For,
Well,
huh?
No.
What was that,
I
Liz?
think that we give them specifically for Septemberfest, that's in-kind service.
No, I meant the township, not the rec. I meant when the township, when we do things for them, and use our trucks and our people, and we bill them.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
For
but-
everything.
but-
But this is
But not
Parks
for
and
everything,
Recs.
not for everything.
This is
I think
specific
it's
Parks
petty
and
for them
Recs.
to be asking for $1,000, but that's here and there.
Yeah, it won't break us to do that. but-
They got, when's this due, when does this due, Pat?
But then again.
Well, that's my question.
There's a lot of holes in this thing. There's a lot of work that's got to be done to it.
Well, that's why I say, we're looking at a date on our joint session, and Liz will get us back some numbers, some dates
We
and
gotta do
things like
Say
that.
something about it, has to be.
I
submitted
don't,
by
I don't
sometime
look at it as
on
being
the
that big of holes in it, though, really, Dan.
In order to receive any DNR grants, he wants
I
it
agree
in.
with
Yeah, I thought it was some date in February.
I don't like that the village.
The 20th rings a bell, because I talked to him.
Dan,
I thought it was the first week.
I mean, I know it's.
I don't want to ruin anybody's holiday season, but I think it's possible. How many sessions did we have on the master plan, special meetings? 4?
Colleen.
5?
Thank you.
We had what, 4 or 5 on the master plan, special sessions? I would think we might need one. So rather than sitting here, for example, we could sit there for,
Making revisions, or they weren't getting them right, so it probably was.
but
about
again,
that.
they weren't getting them
Liz
right.
can attest
They
to
weren't
that,
getting
yeah.
them
Right,
right.
it
We'll
wasn't
get them
our
right.
fault.
We'll get them right. We'll
Yeah.
type them and say, this is the way we want them.
Right, no, it wasn't by hours.
So all I'm saying is, I don't want to rain on anybody's Christmas parade, But the fact of the matter is, I think we might have to meet once by ourselves before we could do a joint session. But I think we could get it done in that meeting.
Well, hopefully, he'll schedule the, Fred will have something scheduled here in the near future. I think just about everybody's gonna be in town for the next few weeks, I hope, or, and maybe we can get the ball rolling now,
Yeah, I think personally, this is very doable.
So it doesn't.
But I do think we're gonna need a special session. We'll do 3 hours to get it done, then have our joint session.
So it doesn't take but a minute. Everybody's marked them up and written all over them.
Yes?
You scan them, you get on the phone with them, you make a copy, you write a page notes. It's not that difficult to
right.
send
If
Fred the
you-
concerned page
if-
numbers, and then go from there and see, what we can do to have a group.
Correct.
Group
Well, we don't have enough
information.
copies for everybody, so we'll have to make sure everybody else gets copies.
Are we short a copy?
No, I have mine.
Oh, you do, okay.
I left it in my
Okay.
office. No,
Okay,
I
all right.
got it.
As I was saying, it would be nice for all of us to have our edits made and returned to a clean copy when we do meet for the
If-
3 hours. That would be a
Right.
good idea.
Exactly.
And so if we
And
could
if
do that and
you-
get that in.
If you have enough faith and confidence that you can give it to me tonight or at some designated time, I'll put it in the pile. I will not make any changes to your copy. I promise you that. But we will try to incorporate those, changes. And you gotta have your name on this. Who's this from? Oh.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Tanya.
We appreciate it.
Give me your name. Give me your name. I can't.
Zero.
I need the last 4 digits of your social security number also.
Okay, I think we do.
So, do we have a certain date that we would like to receive those by,
When, did they get them by?
that you would like to receive them by?
Tell me, when can you get them to me? So I can get with Fred and we can sit down on the computer again and hammer this out. Is it gonna be perfect? No, but it'll be progress.
So, you know what? I gave Fred our master plan, and it clearly spells out the Ortonville Recreation Plan. And I told him, when I gave that to him, to use Ortonville's master plan on what the majority of what council was leaning towards with the master plan, to put it in here. He clearly didn't read the master plan.
Well, wait a minute now. Trustee Ashman, how many pages was that master plan? A lot.
Okay, just throw it back to us and let us write his plan
Could
for him.
you,
So
no,
do we have a
could
date
you-
that you would like to receive that by?
Dad, could you on that master plan just highlight the areas you think did you do that?
Go to the recreation section in the master plan, read it. That's all he got to do. He doesn't have to read the whole plan.
That's fine then. Okay. Well, duly noted.
Do you have a date that you would like to receive that by, so we can move on?
Well, today's Monday. Do you want to give it to me at the latest by Thursday or Friday of this week?
Christmas is.
Friday would be great. Thursday's a little
Let's say,
rushing
let's
it.
get by the end of the week.
All right.
By the end of the week.
Is this adequate?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Friday,
So when is it due,
5 p.m.
when is this due to be done? No kidding, it's got to be in. When is it got to be done?
February 1.
February 1.
It is, Fred has talked about that at length in our meetings, and it is crunch time.
Yeah.
I thought the 20th.
Basically piggybacking off of them.
Yeah.
And I know that it is short order, or you guys are gonna lose out.
Yep.
Yeah, and like I said, it's the
I don't-
township who's gonna lose out most because they're the ones who rely
Good.
more on grants. and-
Friday?
Friday.
Give us your changes.
Friday, 5
I'd like to
p.m.
get it sooner. Thursday would be
Liz, would you
great.
mind sending out an email?
Because then Fred and
about
me
that
could
tomorrow?
work on it on Friday.
Just
So what I plan on doing, I'm
And a
gonna,
text.
I'm gonna take out the recreation excerpt from our master plan and I'll give that to you.
Okey dokey.
All right.
I'm not gonna sit there and
Dan?
draft your master
So
plan.
now we are
Dan?
on C, which is the draft
Dan?
emergency management plan.
Acceptable as long as you sign it for me. Will you do that? That's all I ask.
And with our draft emergency management plan, we decided
Much better, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
we are going to work on that in February. He's gone. Oh, he's right there. Evidently, Oakland County has sent some edits
Merry
and
Christmas.
changes that we'd like to incorporate. County sent to township, township will then incorporate and send to us. So we're going to put that on the back burner. But if there's anything that you had a suggestion on, please do get that in, and then we can incorporate that in the new version. Thank you. All right. D is the pro tempore appointment and election. Well, appointment or election, all the above. And that is to be done yearly after the November election. So here we are. That is appointed by the president, approved by the council. Again, done at a yearly rate. And, oops, 1 second. What I would like to do is I would like to suggest for appointment Mark Butsu. I have appreciated the way that he has been engaging. He's been in attendance. He communicates well with council and with outside members. I appreciate the continual questions that you give to us, and the fact that you've been involved on a constant basis. So that's what I base the evaluation on.
I'd
That would be
support
my
that.
recommendation.
I'd support that.
Don't we need to hear from Mr. Butchu to make sure he can do that?
And once we have a motion and a
By
support, then we can have a
president.
discussion,
I was
absolutely.
To be this year's president pro tem.
So,
I'd support that whole way.
do we have, you said support, Pat.
I
We
said-
did
I
not
support.
have a motion
Oh, I'm
on the
sorry.
table.
Did I get a little excited there?
I'll make a motion to nominate Mark for
All
President
right,
Pro Tem.
so we have,
Do I have to accept?
No.
can we have, hold on, a motion of support and a
forced,
discussion, and then we can continue. Sorry.
To bring some stability to this.
We have a motion on the table by Pat George, I'm sorry.
Try.
Motion on the table by Councilman Hayden, supported
Something happened.
supported by Councilman George, to appoint Mark Robbins, or Mark Butsu.
Except this, I won't write a letter.
You know, it's really hard to hear when everybody's talking at the same time.
Sorry, I apologize.
To appoint Mark Butsu for president, pro temp for the Ortonville Village. I'm going to stop talking. All right. Any discussion, conversation, questions? Now go ahead.
I have a question. Mark, are you up for the task? I mean, is that your desire?
It's not my desire, to be honest with you. I think there are more people, there are people that are better qualified than I. I would like to, I would decline if I could. I mean, if I
It's your
could.
choice. I'm sorry you will, but yes, you absolutely can decline.
Yeah.
That's a shame. I think you've done a real good choice, Mark.
I was kind of leaning myself towards nominating Colleen. She's got a lot more wisdom when it comes to that chair when you're not here. She knows how to run a meeting, and she likes Dale. That's a good thing. No, I'm joking, okay?
What does she know? Is he done?
You know, I'd like to, actually, I would like to decline, but at the same time nominate Colleen, if that's okay.
I'll support that.
Good.
All right, so the motion either has to be withdrawn, or it has to be voted upon.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, if we vote on it and vote
You decide which
in-
way you want to do it. It's up to you. It's your motion.
You sure you don't want to do this, Mark?
I'm positive.
Okay. I think you would be really good at this. I think you're well qualified. But based upon your input, I will withdraw my motion.
Thank you, Larry.
Now you have to make a motion.
All right,
And
hold on 1 second.
Well, let me just ask a question, and I have not researched this, but the president has indicated that this position is something that she nominates, that office nominates, and then is approved or disapproved by the village. So it's not appropriate. She made a nomination, that person has declined to accept it. I don't think that now makes it so anybody on council can move to name someone else to that position.
That's fair.
It has to
You're
be
right.
another nomination by the president. If she's ready to do that this evening, that's fine. If in light of the fact that the person won't accept, then I would suggest you table it to the next meeting.
I mean, honestly, I wasn't planning to. I mean, I didn't have a list of people, but I can, no problem tabling it till the next meeting.
Now, I understand that there's a statute that says that you're supposed to do it at a certain time. If you can't get it done, we have been discussing it at the appropriate date time. To hold it off to another date, I don't think is violating anything. But I just think it's important that you follow your own rules and your regulations on how you do these things. And if that's is the case, and I see a lot of nodding, so you're all agreeing that's appropriate, then it has to go back to the president for a recommendation.
All right,
Good.
So if you're going to
Point taken,
postpone it,
thank you.
then you need a motion to that effect.
To postpone item D to the January meeting.
And I assume that in the interim, just like planning commission, the existing pro tempore remains in place
Stays as,
until.
yep, is
Yes.
status quo. All right, so I make a motion to do that. Anybody support?
Support.
All right, motion by President Bryce, supported by Councilman George. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up for E, we have the redevelopment ready community resolution. And that is the information that was provided to you in September. And
Additional information was provided in the packet.
Yep.
And Matt was here earlier. I don't know if, speak about it if you have any questions.
Well, and we talked about it last month as well, that it's the main focus for us as a community would be the additional grants that are available to business owners in town or to empty spaces that would draw businesses in. It would find the best fit of a specific space. So we could advertise and say, hey, this would be a best fit for this, this, or this. And I know you mentioned that at one point, Dan, of who to draw in for certain spaces. This kind of is similar to that. But we then have the resources to set that up for us. And they provide and they evaluate and they help us brainstorm to find the spaces for this. This has come and gone vaguely here and there with the concern of being sure that we're prepared for it. Matt has had all the training, and he's prepared to do that. You also have to have a village staff member and a planning commission member on it as well. It came up again, and they came out to visit us in June or July with the otherwise known as Thompson's Hardware. And the county suggested that that would be a great way to assist them in their expansive undertaking of expenses for that building. So we kind of, it lit us a fire underneath us to, look into this. If they're looking at opening 3 spaces there, how can we best get these spaces filled and get our community going?
And
So
there's some
that's kinda
training
how
that
this came
needs
around.
to occur for people to be part of this.
Correct.
It's not just, you can appoint somebody to do it, but then they're going to have to do some.
One person has to have the training, which is Matt, but if he could come and go at any point in time, he could retire. So therefore, we do need multiple people trained at
They
some point,
recommend it.
absolutely.
It's
Right.
just recommended.
Right.
And Matt
But-
has gone through the training.
Right.
Yeah,
But
so
like I said,
he-
that's
he's
to get us started. Obviously, you would like more than one person, aware of anything. But anyway, so that is, like I said, the background to that as to why that was a great fit for us and how that might work with our visions of what we're looking for. And there's a suggested motion to get that into play, and then you would work on the appointment of the staff and the planning commissioner then from that point. That does not have to be done consecutively, that can be done next time.
I will make the motion to approve resolution, I suppose we gotta change that number?
No, you can leave it.
2019-11-25, authorizing Village of Ortonville to participate in the Michigan Economic Development Corporation Redevelopment Ready Communities Program and appoint 1 office staff and 1 planning commissioner to enroll in redevelopment ready education.
I'll support. Oh, go ahead. Dan? All right, motion on the table by Councilman Hayden, supported by Councilman Eschman. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Wayne, at all?
Not really, other than the fact that it's pretty self-explanatory. When you have that designation, you're going to be, it's going to send a message. It's going to send a message to, excuse me, when you have this designation, when anybody is looking to locate in one of our buildings downtown, they're going to have this designation, and that tells them that these people have taken the coursework, and that the community is ready and willing and able to do as Mark Butsu told me several years ago, and that is, find people that will work in the downtown. And I've never forgotten that, because that was important at the time, because, we have to work with what we have. And we can't make a square peg fit into a round hole. And so that's part of the issue. People have bought Thompson's Hardware. They didn't realize that they had to do some issues. Had they done their homework and talked in length with the DDA, then there would have, this potential problem wouldn't happen. So this redevelopment process tells them that, this is what we're willing to talk about and what we can do, and what we can do with these properties. So it's a good move in my opinion.
I'd like to just comment. I think it's a great move, but it is disturbing that someone went and bought that school, promised us a load of whatever. It all sounded great, you know what? And I see them dragging their feet, and I see that school being a big eyesore over time. And somehow, if this group can tie that commitment to the potential property purchaser, buyer, developer, entrepreneur, to actually have a schedule such that there's a timeline on different gates. I'm going to buy it here, it's going to take me this year, and by this time, my business is going to be up and running,
And whether it's Thompson's Hardware or the school building,
Yeah.
or any other
Exactly.
empty building.
Deadlines, goals, yeah.
Otherwise, if people are going to invest and they're just sit on the property, what does it do for the village not doing anything with it?
And we were told months ago, that's like, oh, it's getting real close
Yeah,
to
they
being
came
open,
in.
real close.
Yeah.
It's like, the permits are all done, right, for that school property? Yeah.
Bill Denon probably knows more as to what's been talked about and what's been promised or quasi-promised.
Well, and this is obviously, similar but different topic.
But it falls in line. I mean, it's...
But it helps people know that there are some guidelines that we as a community would like people to follow. So
Thank you.
we're gonna cooperate, but you gotta cooperate as the purchaser.
Much appreciated.
I would just indicate to the council that I would be interested in being the staff representative for this.
Thank you. Thank you. Good.
Noted. All right, so we have a motion on the table by Councilman Hayden, supported by Councilman Ashman. Did we have any further discussions or questions at this time? Okay. Can we have a vote, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And Dale, your name is on there. Lucky you. Next, no, I'm excited. Take it and go. Next up, we have our municipal civil infraction ordinance amendment. So there is, that was tabled from November as well. We have that motion, the amendment in front of us to the ordinance. And looking to entertain a motion on that.
I would, we had at the last meeting, I think, an inclusion of the municipal civil infractions ordinance with regard specifically to an item within our ordinances. I would like you to table this item. I'm not positive that we haven't already adopted this. This was sent to us by our attorney with the idea that we didn't have it anywhere in the ordinance because he couldn't find that it wasn't anywhere in the ordinance. And I've mentioned this to Liz, and we just haven't had the chance to do the due diligence to find if in fact we had. I thought that I had seen this identical thing because I was wondering what I need to do with that ordinance and could I just reference it. If in fact we don't have it, we have to have something that establishes this within our code, but we may have it already. So rather than be redundant, I'd like to postpone it till January.
Well, I do recall,
So
I
we're
do
looking
recall on
for.
the planning commission that this topic had come up in the past. I don't recall myself whether any action was taken or recommendations made to council at that time. I was not an active council member at that time, so I'm again not sure whether anything was done to the matter. So I will go ahead and make a motion to postpone the civil infraction ordinance until our January meeting.
Support.
Motion on the table by Councilman Hayes, supported by Councilman Skornick. Any further questions, discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. And we have our village manager's report.
I have nothing additional to give you at this time.
Excellent. And we do thank you for keeping us updated, as you talked about earlier with communications. We enjoy to see what you're giving us over and over. We appreciate it.
Just a quick question. How are we set for salt for this season?
We have a barn full of salt right now.
Okay.
We have the opportunity to buy additional if we need it.
Okay.
But
We just spent about 20 grand last month.
We can get up to 350 tons additional. I think we're good.
I remember last year we had a little situation where, we were having problems finding it,
Yep.
so.
But I'll tell you, that it was another time when I was more than proud of what our DPW staff did, because unlike some communities where the people who are delivering this stuff actually dump it in the storage unit that the community uses, they dump it out on the driveway. And Bob and his staff, and it was raining that day, had it covered with tarps and went through and unloaded all of that stuff into that storage unit. I don't know how they did it. I mean, I don't know how in the world, the way it had to be stacked in, they even did it. But this is such a great group of people that work for your benefit all the time. And that's just another example. It was a nasty thing to have to be doing. They just did it.
They know how to get it done.
One thing I also want to add, as far as, it was brought up about the snow removal, that storm that hit us and all that. One of the guys was actually not available. He was actually out of town at the time. So they had limited resources on top of that, so.
And we had equipment problems as well. And those things are going to happen. If we don't have that much of, we don't have any backup for equipment. And if one of the trucks breaks down, and that truck happens to be the one that has the salter on it, there's not going to be any salting done.
Speaking of Salter, I saw the report from Bob about working on EPOC M20 Salter. Is that the one that we just recently acquired?
I'm not sure.
Yes.
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 It's the new one.
And I see, if it's a new one, and I see the cost on there, was there any type of warranty or anything that came with it when we purchased it that we maybe could take a look at? Because, to me, it seems we just bought it and we're already having issues with it.
And an expensive repair, that's what I brought up last month, was about, before we started work on it, did we contact them for warranty?
So,
And I'm
I think,
sure
don't we have two
that
Salters?
those things.
We fixed the old one, and he also installed the new one instead of before.
We got the old one kind of going as a backup, so that was nice. It still drops salt,
Right.
not as good as the new one does.
Well, I would like to just double check and make sure that was followed up on in terms of warranty or something.
Yeah.
Because that is concerning that we buy something new and it's already had, at least, I think this is the second repair I'm aware of.
All right. Next up is our public comments, and those would be non-agenda items only. Do you have anybody who'd like to step up to the podium?
Certainly. Wayne Wills, wherever I am, 4 North Church Street.
We're all getting a little slappy.
Yeah, and late. This is the second time, if not the third time, that I've addressed the board about this issue, asking questions about what's going on with it. I'm getting no response whatsoever, none. And I'm speaking specifically about the invasive species that are on the east side of Church Street. There's a creek or a drain that runs down, beginning at East Ridge and goes all the way to the south. It runs to the south under Mill Street, goes in behind Betty Owen's house, and then it merges with the drain coming down from Cedar Hill down Mill Street. What's happening is the Phragmites are, their root system is causing water damage, water to be dammed up, causing people to lose their backyards. As I mentioned the last meeting, my neighbor is in the process right now of putting in an engineered septic field, and At one point in time, we did talk about, when I was on the board, we did talk about cleaning out that drainage, and it got dropped. So, here I am again.
As you know, I don't want to, sorry.
You don't have to, but you can if you want. Yeah, so basically, you know, is there any concern on the part of the council? And if there is, you know, how is it going to be addressed? And if so, when? Because it is an issue and continue to be an issue. I'm losing some of my backyard. Various other people up and down the community, that street, are losing their backyards. So it's causing some damage. And as I mentioned earlier about Phragmites, they grow very tall, and in the fall when they dry, if you get a spark, they become a fire hazard. And so it could create a problem. It could extend into the forestry areas that are east of that even well. But it's on private property, unlike the Wildlife Preservation Park that's on public property. But the same issues are there. You got flooding, and you got potential for fire.
We thank you for reminding us of that. I think that fell through the cracks. I know that was something that Bill was handling, and I don't think it stayed on our radar.
Okay.
So I appreciate it. We will definitely put that back on there for Bob and Dale.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.
All right. 15 is our items from trustees. Mark, let's start on your section.
Let's see, I'm not
19.
No, I just want to, I wrote this down because I think it's important. A lot of the people that come and talk about, and we listen to them, and they have valid points about being able to walk in the park. But I've heard so many people think that they can't, that it's off limits, off. I don't know where they get this information, but it's just like, come on. I mean, it's open. I don't know how many times people on this council have told people that it is open. You can walk back there. Yeah, if you're going to get muddy, maybe, but it's open. And I also think that there seems sometimes to be an attitude when that park is so unique to Ortonville. I can't think of another community. There are probably others. And this is not going on in the National Register. It's just what we call Preservation Park, Ortonville. I can't think of another place that has something so uniquely cool but that. If people want to do the trail thing and really get, the blood rate going and move that stuff, they can walk less than a mile away and get up Bloomers Trails. And they got the same thing. But this is unique, so people that have, there are other people that are interested in it, and I just like, I'm not looking for world peace or anything here. I just like, give us a break. I think there's an opportunity and room for all, and I'm excited about it.
I'm good.
Okay, I have a couple of things. First of all, I think I will respond to your feedback there during our items from trustees, could take a chance to do that. I have always been supportive of addressing drainage issues in this village because I know that drainage issues are very important in our community, especially when it comes to streets and roads and making sure that when we do work on roads and streets and things like that, that it isn't going to just be destroyed by drainage. So I think that drainage issues are important. We definitely need to focus on them. Your situation there is a little bit tricky because that area, since it is a wetland area behind there, it makes it a little more difficult to get in there and do stuff because there are protections from DNR and stuff like that. So we just have to make sure.
It was done 30 years ago. It was cleaned out.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's not that it can't be done, but we do have to abide by whatever DNR regulations, et cetera, apply to that.
It's a given, that's a given.
Spraying for Phragmites and things like invasive species in particular, I am personally a little bit leery of that because other than areas where it's definitely a distinct drainage problem that has to be addressed to fix drainage, I am a little concerned with using any types of chemicals like that because of potential impact on the environment.
So I think we just have to make sure that, we need to address these, but we need to make sure we do our homework, we understand what we're doing, and we understand the full impact of what we do and make good decisions on it. So I thank you for your input, and I definitely will take it to heart myself, and I'm hoping that as a council we can find creative ways, and our village manager can find some good ways to address those issues in a appropriate manner. That's one thing. Second thing, I have to say I really commend the DPW. The village is looking really good. I saw there was some issues with some of those garlands and pole wraps and things, but everything looks really great now, so I really appreciate all the effort they put in there. I heard that they replaced, I don't know how many thousand bulbs to get all those wreaths looking as good as they do now, so I really appreciate all the effort they put in for that. And finally, in spite of everything that happens within this council, we have some contention, we have heated discussions and stuff. At the end of the day, we go home to our families, we go home to our friends, and at this time of year, I want to make sure I wish each and every council member here happy holidays, and take the time to relax, enjoy, spend the time with your families, and come back next year so we can all, as was said, we all care about this community, we want to do what's right. Let's come back refreshed and really work hard for the community next year.
After Friday. Thank you. Now that you're coming.
So I have a couple things for next meeting, and this is just a recommendation, and I can't speak for council, but we have services. We have engineering services that have been provided us for years. We also have had legal services been provided us through the years from the same. I think it's about time we do an evaluation on each of those services to, okay, let's rate them. Where does council believe that our engineering services are performing or lacking? And then likewise for legal, where is our legal performing and or lacking, or what would they like to see do different? So in some form of evaluation, I would like to recommend that maybe we put that on for next month.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like it. And then the other thing is, I'm not going to do an evaluation on our village manager, Dale. I'm going to echo it right now. I am pleased. For 90 days, I think he's doing pretty darn good. Certainly, I mean, to expect anybody to hit the ground running in a village and as complex and as, politically charged, if you will, I think Dale's doing pretty damn good. And so if anybody's critical on him, they got to understand the dynamics that are around this man to be able to pick up the nuances, the people, the whole processes, etc. He comes with a wealth of experience. He comes with great legal advice. And that's one of the reasons why we all unanimously, I believe, voted him in to be our village manager. So to be so critical in such a short period of time, 90 days is nothing. It really is. So I'd like to have that to be a part of the record, please. And then, other than that, I did read Bob's notes. He did install the brand new salt spreader, but also because of the unanticipated snowfall in November, he also installed the old spreader in another vehicle, and I believe that's where the additional cost came into play. All right, so we can get clarification, if you don't mind, Dale, on that piece. So I don't think the additional cost was to the brand new spreader. Okay, that was me taking his notes. I took a picture of his notes there. So he said he installed both. Okay, and then I do want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. It's a great time of the year to be around family, away from work. I agree. It's a great time to be recharge those batteries, and I don't think the passion is going to go away from any one of these council members here. That's for sure.
Okay, about a year and a half ago, it was brought up. I know I was one that brought up about the Phragmites issues over there by the old school that was just bought out, and there's a creek running over there, and they have just really been growing over there. So all throughout the community, and especially around the creeks and rivers areas, we're really experiencing a lot of problems. I know that back when Bill was here, he got with Bob and all that, and there was some training classes that were made available, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Council, that it was found that it was in our best interest that we didn't use Bob or any, our DPW, because there's so much involved with taking out the Phragmites, that we would use some sort of service and then it fell by the wayside. Nothing happened.
It was training through Oakland County, they recertified it,
I remember that we looked into it, but there was something about, we did not want to utilize Bob because there was so much involved and for him to have to learn, and it would take too much time away from him from doing his regular responsibilities. So there's something about that Bob never actually got the training. So, I don't know if you remember, you were actually
I
on
think that's why
council.
we got waiters.
And that's why
I think it
SISMA
was.
is a membership for SISMA, because they said that it could not be done at the community level, but we thought that Bob could handle it with the certifications that he does have through the state, but it is not. So we continue to try to meet
So
those
we
grants.
have this issue that we want to address it now so that we're prepared for the spring when this stuff starts sprouting up. We got to handle it.
Can we, not to jump in, but while I'm thinking, can we put that meeting on the agenda for next?
I mean,
maybe
we
not
can,
next
but do
month,
we need to? Because that's something that they'll handle in research for grants and continue. We have the SISMA membership, and that's
Alright,
where
that's
you try to gather the grants.
Okay.
So I don't think that's
So
something
it's
we
a grant issue
necessarily
that
need
we're looking
to.
at?
Well, that is where you would get grants to treat.
Okay, all right.
Like the township had, it's a 2-year grant. The first year you have to kill and burn, the second year you have to treat. And it takes 2-year cycle in order to kill off everything. So the township has received a grant and did a couple sample areas, and then that gave us the opportunity to kind of hop in on SISMA. But it's based on your size of your community and your population. So we are not going to get much, but something is wonderful.
But we have a huge Phragmites issue. I mean, everywhere you look, we got them. You got them in your backyard, I got them like out in mine, and
I haven't
all
seen
over.
it specifically in my backyard, but right across on the other side, there's a big patch behind that area there.
All along the school
And
area.
unfortunately, a lot of the Phragmites are sitting on private property where we really can't go on and do
Yup.
anything anyways.
But you can also get a grant that the private homeowners can go into that can supplement them. So
If
each
they-
homeowner can
if
have
they
a
choose
price,
to. If
right?
they choose not
And you
to,
could
it's-
choose to, so that would help the homeowners to treat, yeah. And so, like I said, SISMA, so you can do both public and private.
I think we're all on board with that. We just need to make sure we move forward and then address it early enough so that we're off and running come spring, you know what I mean? And
Maybe that'd be a good to get, February meeting getting an update, because that'd be early enough in spring. And
Yep.
I don't want to see our January meeting get too overloaded, so.
Right, I'm good with that. It just, let's let it get it on some sort of future agenda to where we can get the ball rolling.
In the meantime, though, I think we can do research because, like I said, I clearly remember the lady from Oakland County that was here and said about the certification and the training that goes involved. So I want to make sure that we're just not overlooking that piece too. There may be grants out there, and that's great, but I think there might be also another option. I know what's that?
No.
Oh.
I also want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and, and a Happy New Year and safe holiday travels if everybody goes anywhere after Friday, after we turn in our homework to back. Yeah. That was all.
Yeah.
I just want to thank everybody that participated and helped distribute the OSEF food distribution and the community toy store. There's 145 families that were being assisted this year. Don't forget to light your luminaries on Christmas Eve. We ask if the house is vacant or there's winter snowbirds or something that, you light theirs too. A lot of work goes into it, and the village looks absolutely gorgeous when it's all lit. So don't forget, we're constructing them on Monday at 8 a.m. No, we're not. It's 10 a.m. and then distribution on Christmas Eve at 8 a.m. The blacksmith shop is completed, except with the cement, which will be done in the springtime. The sign is up, looks very nice. Also, just for the holiday visits, or the holiday time of year, is always nice to have some inspiration. And I encourage everybody to, look at the wreaths across America, the Great Lakes National Cemetery. It's very nice and it serves a great purpose. I want to thank everybody for coming out for Christmas in the Village, thanks to the DDA, their efforts and all that came out during that weekend. I also want to ask Liz if we can put the census information out on our website or keep it updated. I attended the census class last week, 2 weeks ago. And it's just, we want to make sure that everybody's aware the census is coming, and to be prepared for that. I would ask the village manager, it's informational, just mere informational, if we could get, how many miles of sidewalks do we have in our village? And I had asked before about the list of the tax services, or the services that the taxpayers receive, but aside from that, the miles of sidewalks that we have. Thank you. I would also like to know why there's leaves in the front of several businesses, and DPW is picking them up. It's like we don't do leaf pickup, or what the intention is there, and why the leaves are there. The other thing I will postpone until January meeting. I would like to just point out, I'll probably bring it up at the January meeting, but just FYI, I would like to propose a policy on media. And I think that should do it for me. Just reiterating what everybody else said, I wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and safe travels. Enjoy the time off with your families.
After Friday.
After Friday.
Maybe it should have been Tuesday. Then we would be done by now. Piggyback on that, I also wanted to say thank you for Christmas in the Village. The DPW always does a great job setting up. Downtown looks beautiful, as people have said. Recreation Department, Friends of Amos, all the work that they did on Christmas in the Village. It's absolutely wonderful. Love to see everybody's faces come down. And as Kelly mentioned, our next wonderful event is Illuminaries, so please take time to come out and check it out. You mentioned the social media policy. That is a draft policy currently with the
No, it wasn't
personnel.
social media. I didn't say social media.
I thought you said social. What did you say?
The media.
Oh, which one?
I'll talk about it in January.
Oh, okay. All right. Wanted to make sure it's not redundant, something that's already a draft. All right. Anybody else have anything that they can think of? All right. We are officially adjourned at 9:55.
With 5 minutes to spare.